The orphanage matron threw his sandal at him, not a pillow, not a book. His own sandal, the left one, the one with the broken strap he'd tried to fix with wire from a trash bin behind the weapons shop. It hit the wall next to his head and clattered to the floor, and Naruto stared at it for a second before he looked back up at her face. She was red, not angry red, scared red, the kind of red people got when they looked at him too long. "Get out," she said. Her voice was shaking. "I told the Hokage I couldn't do it anymore, and I meant it. You burned the kitchen. That wasn't me. The stove was already out. Tonight, now." Naruto opened his mouth to argue, but two of the older workers were already behind him, and one of them grabbed his collar and the other grabbed his arm, and they moved him through the hallway so fast his feet barely touched the floor. The other kids watched from their doorways. Some of them looked scared. A couple looked glad. One girl, Naruto didn't even know her name, mouthed something that looked like sorry. The front door opened and the night air hit him, and then the door closed and he was standing on the step in one sandal with nothing else. He stood there for a while. The street was empty. Konoha at night always felt like a different village to Naruto, quieter, colder, like the buildings leaned in closer to whisper about him. A few lamps burned along the main road, but the residential blocks were dark. Normal people were home. Normal people were eating dinner with their families and complaining about normal things. Naruto put his hands in his pockets and found a crumpled candy wrapper and half a pencil and nothing useful at all. He should go to the Hokage's office. The old man would sigh and rub his forehead and say something tired but kind, and maybe he'd let Naruto sleep on the couch again. And in the morning, there'd be some new arrangement that would last a few weeks before falling apart like the last one. But the Hokage's office was across the village, and Naruto's feet were already moving the other direction. He walked. No destination, just away. The commercial district gave way to residential streets. Then those gave way to the older parts of Konoha, where the clan compounds sat behind high walls and heavy gates. Naruto had walked past most of them before. The Hyuga compound, with its pristine white walls. The Nara compound, where you could sometimes hear deer in the woods behind it. The Akimichi place that always smelled like cooking meat, which was the cruelest thing in the world when you were hungry. He kept walking. The streets got quieter. The lamps got further apart. He didn't realize where he was until he saw the fan symbol on the wall. The Uchiha compound. Naruto stopped. He'd never been this close before. The main gate was tall and painted dark, and the red and white fan emblem was faded slightly from years of sun. The street here was empty, really empty, in a way that felt intentional, like someone had drawn a line that the rest of Konoha didn't cross. Naruto knew about the Uchiha the way every kid in Konoha knew about them. They were the police. They had the scary eyes. They kept to themselves. Even the orphanage kids told stories. Don't go near the Uchiha district. They'll look at you and steal your thoughts. They'll put you in a nightmare you can't wake up from. He should keep walking. He kept walking. Halfway past the main gate, he heard the sound. It wasn't a scream exactly. It was shorter than that, cut off, like someone had started to yell and then something had stopped them. Naruto froze. The sound came from inside the compound, past the wall, somewhere deep in the grid of streets and houses that made up the Uchiha's private world. Then another sound. A thud, heavy. Wrong, then nothing. Naruto's heart was beating hard and his legs were telling him to run, but he didn't run. He couldn't have explained why. Some part of him, the same part that pulled pranks on Anbu agents 3 times his size, the same part that yelled back at shopkeepers who spat at him, the same stupid, brave, idiot part that had gotten him thrown out of everywhere he'd ever been. That part took a step toward the gate. The gate was ajar. That was wrong. He knew it was wrong even at 7. The Uchiha always kept their gates closed. He'd heard people talk about it. The gate was never open. He pushed it with one hand. It swung inward without a sound. The street beyond was dark. The compound had its own lamps, but they weren't lit tonight. The houses on either side were silent. Naruto took one step inside, then another, and the smell hit him. He didn't know what it was at first. It was copper and something else. something hot and organic, and his stomach flipped and he almost turned around. But his feet kept moving because the fear was mixing with something bigger than fear now. Something was wrong here. Something was really, seriously, terribly wrong, and Naruto had lived his whole life being ignored when things went wrong, and maybe that was why he didn't turn back. Because no one had ever come when things went wrong for him either. He found the first body at the end of the first street. It was a man. He was lying face down in the road, and there was something dark pooling around him, and Naruto's brain refused to process it for a full 3 seconds before the word blood arrived like a punch. Naruto stumbled back. His heel hit something. He looked down, and there was a woman slumped against the wall of a house, her eyes open and empty, a kunai still clutched in her hand. She'd been trying to fight. She hadn't been fast enough. "No," Naruto said, just the word, just the sound. No, 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 he should run. He should run and scream and find an adult, find a ninja, find somebody, a crash from deeper in the compound. Glass breaking. A voice, low and pained, he ran toward it. Later, Naruto wouldn't remember the details of the run. He wouldn't remember how many bodies he passed, or how the streets of the compound twisted and turned. He wouldn't remember the 2 cats that bolted past him, or the overturned cart of vegetables in one intersection, or the child's shoe lying in the middle of the road. His brain burned those images out of his conscious memory like a mercy, but his body remembered them. For years afterward, he'd flinch at the smell of copper. He'd have trouble sleeping when it was too quiet. He'd feel his throat close up when he saw a shoe lying on its side. He ran until he hit the center of the compound, where the main house stood. It was larger than the others. 2 stories, traditional architecture, with the Uchiha fan painted above the door in colors that were almost black in the darkness. The front door was open. The crash he'd heard had been a window on the 2nd floor, which was shattered outward, glass scattered across the walkway. And on the front steps, halfway between the door and the road, a woman was trying to crawl. She was leaving a trail behind her. Naruto could see it even in the bad light, dark and wet and glistening. She was using one arm to pull herself forward, and the other was pressed against her stomach, holding something in, and every time she moved, she made a sound that wasn't a scream and wasn't a groan. It was smaller than that. It was the sound of someone trying very hard not to die. Naruto ran to her. "Hey, hey, lady," she flinched when he touched her shoulder. Her head came up, and her eyes were wild, and for a moment, Naruto was looking at the Sharingan. 2 red eyes spinning with black marks that cut through the darkness like embers. Then she blinked, and they were just eyes, dark and glassy with pain, and she was staring at him like she couldn't understand what she was seeing. "Who?" Her voice was barely there. "You're not, you need to go, you need to run, he's still." She coughed, and something dark came out, and Naruto felt the candy wrapper crinkle in his pocket as his hands shook. "You're hurt," he said, stupid, obvious, but his mouth wasn't connected to his brain anymore. We gotta. Run." She grabbed his wrist, and her grip was iron even now. "He'll come back. My son, he." Something broke in her voice, and she sagged, and her eyes started to close. "No, no, no, stay awake, you gotta stay awake." Naruto didn't think about what he did next. Thinking would have stopped him. He grabbed her arm, the one not holding her stomach together, and pulled it over his shoulder. She was twice his size at least, a grown woman and a shinobi at that, and he was a malnourished 7-year-old who weighed about as much as a large dog. It shouldn't have worked. It was physically absurd. He lifted her anyway, not all the way. He couldn't carry her. But he could drag her, and that's what he did, one stumbling step at a time, her feet trailing behind them, her weight threatening to crush him with every movement. The blood on her clothes soaked into his shirt, warm at first and then quickly cold, and he could feel her breathing against his neck, shallow and rapid. "Where?" Naruto gasped. "Where do I hospital, which way is?" She didn't answer. She'd passed out. Naruto made a sound that was close to a sob, but wasn't one because he didn't cry. He never cried, and he adjusted her weight and kept moving. Back down the street, past the bodies. Past the overturned cart, and the broken windows and the terrible copper smell that was everywhere now, in his hair and his clothes and his lungs. The gate was ahead. The gate was 100 steps away, then 80, then 50, and his legs were shaking and his shoulders were screaming, and the sandal on his right foot snapped its strap and he kicked it off and walked barefoot on the cold road. The gate was 20 steps. The gate was 10. He made it through the gate and into the empty street beyond, and his legs gave out, and they both went down in a heap on the ground, and the woman groaned but didn't wake up, and Naruto lay there with his face against the dirt and breathed. He breathed for 3 seconds. Then he got up and grabbed her again. He made it another block before the Anbu found them. They came out of nowhere, 4 of them, masked, appearing in the road like ghosts. Naruto flinched back so hard he almost dropped the woman. The lead Anbu, cat mask, gray cloak, stopped dead at the sight of them. Naruto could imagine what it looked like. A tiny blonde kid covered in blood, dragging an unconscious Uchiha woman through the streets at midnight. "Help her," Naruto said. His voice came out hoarse and cracked. "She's theirs, everyone in there is, we know." The Anbu voice was flat, professional, but even through the mask, Naruto could see the tilt of the head that meant shock. "How did you help her?" The Anbu moved. One of them took more action snitwork error right the next chapter now. The woman from him so fast and so gently that Naruto barely felt the weight leave his shoulders. Another knelt beside him and started checking him for injuries, hands glowing green, and Naruto pushed the hands away because he wasn't the one dying. I'm fine. She's the one who." "You're covered in blood." "It's not mine, it's hers. Take her to the hospital, her stomach, something cut her stomach, there was." The Anbu who'd taken the woman was already gone. Just vanished, body flickered away with her in his arms. One of the remaining 3 put a hand on Naruto's shoulder, and Naruto realized he was shaking. Not a little. His whole body was vibrating like a plucked wire. "Kid, can you tell me what you saw in there?" Naruto opened his mouth, and what came out wasn't words. It was a sound, high and thin and broken. And then the shaking got worse, and his vision blurred, and the Anbu said something to the others that Naruto didn't catch. Then he was being picked up carefully, and the rooftops were blurring past overhead, and the last thing he registered before he passed out was the smell of smoke from somewhere far away and the distant, impossible thought that he still only had one sandal. He woke up in the hospital. The ceiling was white. The sheets were white. The light coming through the window was gray, which meant early morning, and for a moment Naruto didn't remember any of it. He was just a kid in a bed in a room that smelled like antiseptic, and he was warm, and his body felt heavy in the way it did after he'd run too far. Then he moved and felt the dried blood crack on his shirt collar, and it all came back like a wave. He sat up fast. Too fast. The room spun, and his hands went to the mattress, and he breathed through his nose until the walls stopped moving. The room was small. Standard hospital room, 1 bed, 1 chair, 1 window, 1 door. His clothes were still on, which meant they'd been more concerned with other patients than with cleaning up one kid. The blood on his shirt had dried to a stiff brown, and he could see it on his hands too, under his fingernails, in the creases of his palms, her blood. The woman's blood. The Uchiha woman. Was she alive? Naruto swung his legs off the bed and his bare feet hit cold tile, and he was halfway to the door when it opened, and the 3rd Hokage walked in. Hiruzen Sarutobi looked old. Not old the way he usually looked, the kindly grandfather with the funny hat and the pipe and the patient smile. Old the way mountains looked when the weather had beaten them for too long. His eyes were red, not sharing in red, crying red, or no sleep red, maybe both. He stopped when he saw Naruto standing there in his blood-crusted clothes and bare feet, and something crossed his face that Naruto couldn't name. Grief, maybe, or guilt, or both of those too. "Naruto," the old man said. "Sit down. Is she alive? Sit down. Is she alive?" The Hokage was quiet for a moment. Then, "Yes, she's in surgery. The medics believe she will survive." Naruto's legs went watery and he sat down on the edge of the bed, not because the Hokage told him to, but because his body demanded it. Relief wasn't the right word for what he felt. Relief was when you found your pencil after losing it. This was something bigger, something that sat in his chest and pressed outward. "Who is she?" Naruto asked. The Hokage moved into the room and settled into the chair by the bed. His robes whispered against the floor. He pulled out his pipe but didn't light it, just held it, turning it in his fingers like he needed something to do with his hands. "Her name is Mikoto Uchiha," he said. She was the wife of Fugaku Uchiha, the head of the Uchiha clan." Fugaku is dead, Naruto." A pause. The pipe turned. "They're all dead. The entire Uchiha clan, everyone except Mikoto and her younger son, Sasuke." Naruto's mouth opened but nothing came out. The whole clan. Every person in that compound, every body he'd stumbled past in the dark, every house with its lights out and its doors open. All of them. Who did it? The Hokage's eyes closed. Her older son, Itachi. The silence that followed was enormous. Naruto could hear the hospital sounds, footsteps in the hall, a cart squeaking, someone talking in a low voice 2 rooms over. Normal sounds. Sounds that didn't match the enormity of what the Hokage had just said. Her own kid did that. Yes. Why? The Hokage opened his eyes. He looked at Naruto, and Naruto had the sudden, unsettling feeling that the old man was deciding something, weighing something behind those tired eyes. "We don't know yet," the Hokage said. It was the first lie. Naruto didn't catch it. He was 7 and he was tired and he was covered in a woman's blood, and the lie slid past him like water. "Can I see her?" "She's in surgery, Naruto. You can't when she's out. Can I see her?" Another pause. "We'll see." That was the second lie, or at least a deflection, but Naruto was already learning that adults said, "We'll see," when they meant no, and didn't want to fight about it. He pulled his knees up to his chest and wrapped his arms around them and stared at the wall. "The orphanage kicked me out," he said, because it seemed like he should mention it, even though it felt small and stupid now. "That's why I was outside. I wasn't doing anything wrong." The Hokage made a sound like the air leaving a balloon, slow, defeated. "I know, I'll handle it." "I don't want to go back there." "Naruto." "They don't want me there. Nobody wants me there. The matron threw my shoe at my head." He said it flat, without self-pity, because self-pity required believing that things should be better, and Naruto had stopped believing that a long time ago. He was simply reporting facts. "I'll sleep in the park or whatever. It's fine." "You will not sleep in the park." "Then where?" The Hokage didn't answer that. He stood up slowly and put a hand on Naruto's head. The touch was gentle. Naruto held still for it, the way a stray animal holds still when someone reaches for it, not trusting, not pulling away, just waiting. "Get some rest," the Hokage said. "I'll come back later." He left. The door closed. Naruto sat on the bed in his bloody clothes and stared at the wall and didn't rest. Mikoto Uchiha woke up 3 days later. Naruto knew because he'd been checking. Not through official channels. The nurses wouldn't tell him anything, and most of them wouldn't even look at him. He'd learned to read the hospital's rhythms instead, which hallways got busy at which times, where the Anbu guards were posted, which window on the 3rd floor belonged to the intensive care ward. He'd climbed the tree outside that window 6 times in 3 days. The first 4 times she was unconscious, tubes and bandages and machines around her face the color of old paper. The 5th time a nurse spotted him, and he had to run. The 6th time, early morning, the sun barely up, the tree bark rough and cold under his fingers, he climbed up and looked through the glass, and she was awake. She was staring at the ceiling. Her eyes were open and dark and dry. Not crying, past crying. She had a look on her face that Naruto recognized because he'd seen it in every mirror he'd ever passed. The look of someone who'd been emptied out and was just sitting with the empty. He shouldn't have knocked on the window. It was a stupid thing to do. She was a patient in intensive care who'd nearly been murdered by her own son 3 days ago, and he was a strange kid on a tree branch at 6 in the morning. But Naruto's entire life had been built on doing stupid things that somehow worked out, so he knocked. She turned her head. Their eyes met through the glass. Naruto waved. It was the wrong thing and the right thing and the only thing he knew how to do. A small, awkward wave, like he was greeting someone across a classroom. Mikoto stared at him. Then, very slowly, she raised one hand, the one not connected to a tube, and gestured toward the window latch. The window was locked from the inside. Naruto pointed at the latch and made a frustrated face, and she almost smiled. It was barely a flicker. A twitch at the corner of her mouth that died before it fully formed. But it was there. She reached over with visible effort and unlatched the window. Naruto pushed it open and climbed through, dropping to the floor with a soft thud that made her wince. "Sorry," he whispered. "Sorry, I wanted to see if you were okay. I've been checking. The nurses won't tell me anything because they're—" He stopped himself. He didn't need to explain what the nurses were. "Anyway, you're awake, that's good, that's really good." Mikoto looked at him. She looked at him for a long time, and Naruto fought the urge to squirm because when people stared at him, it usually meant something bad was coming. A thrown sandal. A slammed door. A muttered word that he wasn't supposed to hear but always did. "You," she said. Her voice was rough and thin. "You're the boy." On the steps. You were there. You," she blinked and something moved behind her eyes. "You carried me." "Dragged you mostly. You're kinda heavy, not in a bad way. I mean, you're a grown-up," so he was babbling. He clamped his mouth shut. "What's your name?" "Naruto. Uzumaki." "Naruto Uzumaki." She kept looking at him. The machines beeped. The morning light was coming through the window behind him, painting his shadow long across the floor, and he was suddenly aware of how he must look, small, dirty, his shirt still stained because he only had the one and nobody had offered him a new one. "How old are you, Naruto?" 7. 7. She repeated, and her voice broke on the word. Not a lot, just a hairline fracture. "You're 7 years old and you carried me out of—" She stopped, and her jaw tightened, and she looked away toward the wall, and Naruto could see her throat working. "It's okay," he said, because he didn't know what else to say. "It's not." "Yeah." He sat down on the floor, cross-legged, because the chair was on the other side of the bed and walking around felt like it would break something fragile in the room. "Yeah, I know." They sat in silence. The machines beeped. Somewhere in the hall, a cart squeaked past. Naruto picked at a loose thread on his pants and Mikoto breathed carefully through whatever pain the medication wasn't covering. "Where are your parents?" she asked. "Don't have any." "Guardian, the orphanage." He paused. "They kicked me out." 3 days ago, same night as yeah, she looked at him again. That long, searching look. "Where have you been sleeping?" "Around." "Around where?" "There's a bench in the park near the academy that's got a tree over it, so if it rains, you've been sleeping on a bench." It wasn't a question. Her voice had changed. The grief was still there, but something else had come into it, something harder, something that sounded like anger but not aimed at him. "It's not bad. I've done it before. The summers are—" "Stop." He stopped. Mikoto closed her eyes. Her hand, the free one, was gripping the bedsheet so hard her knuckles were white. She breathed in through her nose and out through her mouth, and Naruto watched the machines spike and settle and spike again. "Would you like breakfast?" she asked, eyes still closed. "What?" "I'm going to ring for the nurse. When she comes, I'm going to ask for 2 breakfasts. You're going to eat one. You look like you haven't had a real meal in days." This isn't a request, Naruto." She opened her eyes and rang the call button. The nurse who came, a thin woman with a tight mouth, looked at Naruto like she'd found a rat in the room. Mikoto looked at the nurse the same way, and the nurse flinched, and 2 breakfasts arrived without further argument. Naruto ate rice and grilled fish and miso soup and pickled vegetables, sitting cross-legged on the floor of a hospital room while a woman he'd saved from bleeding to death ate the same thing in bed, and neither of them talked. It was the best meal he'd ever had, not because of the food. Because someone had asked him to stay for it. The Hokage came that afternoon. Naruto was still there. He'd fallen asleep on the floor after breakfast, curled up on the tile like a cat, and Mikoto had watched him sleep for an hour and thought about things she'd never be able to say out loud. She thought about her husband's face in the dark, about the sound a sword makes, about her oldest son's eyes, red and wet, the last thing she'd seen before the pain hit. About her youngest son, somewhere in this hospital, unconscious and alone and alive because Itachi had chosen to leave him that way. about a 7-year-old boy dragging her through the streets with his bare feet bleeding on the road. When the Hokage entered, she was ready. "Hiruzen," she said. Not Hokage-sama. Not the formal address she'd used for decades as the wife of a clan head, just his name, bare and sharp as a blade. He stopped in the doorway. His eyes moved to Naruto on the floor, then back to her. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. Maybe he had. "Mikoto. It's good to see you awake. The medics say, 'Where is my son?' Sasuke is in room 304. He's physically unharmed but psychologically. I want him moved to the room next to mine. Of course, I'll arrange. And I want to know what you're planning to do about Naruto." The shift caught him off guard. She could see it, the slight widening of the eyes, the recalibration. He glanced at the sleeping boy again. "Naruto is a separate matter. The orphanage situation will be..." The orphanage threw him out. "He's been sleeping on a park bench. He's 7. Each sentence was a nail. She drove them in calmly, precisely. "He saved my life, Hiruzen. He walked into that compound alone, found me, and dragged me to safety. He's 7, and he did what your Anbu didn't do in time." The Hokage's face did something complicated. Guilt, mostly. A deep, structural guilt that lived in the bones of his expression. "I am aware of what Naruto did. I'm grateful. Gratitude is not a policy. What are you going to do?" "We'll find him a new living arrangement. A stipend. Supervision. I want custody." The word hung in the air. The machines beeped. Naruto stirred on the floor but didn't wake. Hiruzen stared at her. "Mikoto, you heard me. You're recovering from injuries that nearly killed you. You've just lost." He caught himself, but too late. "Say it. Your clan, your husband, you have Sasuke to care for. And Naruto. He isn't your responsibility. He became my responsibility when he picked me up off those steps." Mikoto's voice was even, controlled. The voice of a woman who'd been the wife of a clan head, who'd managed politics and personalities and power plays for 15 years, who knew exactly how to corner a man in a conversation and leave him no way out. "This boy has no one, Hiruzen. I know what that's like now. As of 3 days ago, I know exactly what it's like to have no one. I won't let it happen to him. There are complications. Naruto's status in the village is... I know what he is." That stopped the Hokage cold. Mikoto watched the color drain from his face and felt a grim satisfaction that she shouldn't have felt. "You, did you think Kushina didn't tell me?" Her voice softened on the name, just slightly, just enough. "She was my closest friend. She told me about the fox before Naruto was even born. I know what's sealed inside him. I know whose son he is." She paused. "I know that Minato would burn this village to the ground if he could see how his child has been treated." The Hokage said nothing. He stood in the doorway of a hospital room and said nothing, and the silence was a confession. "I want custody," Mikoto said again. "Legally, formally, I want his care transferred to me. I want to raise him alongside Sasuke. The council will object. Let them. Danzo will. Let him." The Hokage studied her. She could see him calculating the political costs, the security concerns, the tangled mess of classified information and village secrets, and a woman who knew too many of them. She could see him weighing it all, and she could see the exact moment he realized that she had leverage he couldn't counter. She was the last adult Uchiha. She was the surviving victim. She was the grieving mother and widow who the village had failed catastrophically and publicly. If she went before the council and said, "This boy saved my life, and I want to raise him," the political cost of refusing her would be enormous. The village was drowning in guilt right now. 3 days out from a massacre that happened inside its own walls, inside its own noble clan, and nobody had stopped it. Nobody had known. Nobody had done anything until a 7-year-old orphan stumbled in and dragged a dying woman through the streets. The village owed her. The village owed him. And Hiruzen Sarutobi, who had let the massacre happen, who had stood at the intersection of every failure that led to that night, who carried a guilt so heavy it had bent his spine, he knew it. "I'll submit the paperwork today," he said quietly. "Today. Today." And Hiruzen. She waited until he met her eyes. "Never lie to me about Naruto again. I know who his parents are. I know what you've been hiding." If I find out that there's anything else, any other secrets, any other manipulations, I will not be understanding about it." He left without answering. The door closed softly. On the floor, Naruto rolled over and mumbled something about ramen in his sleep. Mikoto looked down at him, this small, impossible, brave, lonely child who had walked into hell because he heard someone in pain and couldn't walk away, and she felt something ignite in the hollow space where her world had been, not hope. Not yet. Something before hope. Something fiercer. Purpose. She told Naruto 2 days later. He was sitting in the chair this time. They'd finally gotten him to use the chair, eating a cup of pudding he'd stolen from the nurse's station with zero remorse. Mikoto's wound was healing fast. Shinobi bodies recovered quickly with medical ninjutsu, and the medics had done exceptional work, but the scar would be with her forever. A long, diagonal slash across her abdomen. Itachi's sword. She'd blocked the killing blow, turned it from a fatal strike to a maiming one, using a technique she hadn't practiced in years. An Anbu-level substitution at the last instant, swapping her vital organs a few inches to the left. She would have bled out on those steps if Naruto hadn't come. Naruto. Putting on his upper lip. How would you feel about coming to live with me? He stopped chewing. The spoon hung in the air, halfway to his mouth. He stared at her with an expression she couldn't quite read, surprise, definitely, but underneath it something cautious, something braced. Like, live with you, in a house, in an apartment. I'm not going back to the compound, she said it simply. The compound was a graveyard now. She'd never set foot in it again. I've spoken to the Hokage. He's approved the arrangement. I'll be your legal guardian. Guardian. Naruto repeated like he was tasting the word. It means I'm responsible for you. Your care, your education, I know what it means. His voice was quiet. Not the loud, brash, fill every silence Naruto she'd been getting to know over the past 5 days. A different Naruto, a careful one. Why? Why what? Why would you want to do that? You don't even know me. You saved my life. So that's people don't just... He put the pudding down. His hands were shaking slightly. People say stuff. They say they'll come back. They say they'll take care of it. They say we'll see, and then nothing happens. The old man says nice things, and then I sleep on a bench. So, he swallowed. So are you for real, or is this a we'll see thing? Mikoto felt her heart crack along a line she hadn't known was there. Come here, she said. He didn't move. Naruto. Come here. He got up. He walked to the side of the bed. He stood there stiff and uncertain, and Mikoto reached out and took his hand and held it the way she'd held Sasuke's hand when he was small, before the clan's expectations had calcified around both of them. I am not a will see person. She said, when I say something, I mean it. I'm going to take you home. I'm going to make sure you eat real meals and sleep in a real bed and learn everything you need to learn. And I am going to be there tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. This is not temporary. This is not charity. This is, she stopped, because what she was about to say felt enormous, and she needed to mean it completely before she said it. She did mean it. She had known she meant it since the moment she watched him sleep on the tile floor and thought about her friend Kushina and her friend's bright smile and her friend's son alone in the dark. This is permanent, she said. You're mine now, okay. Naruto's face did something he clearly didn't want it to do. It crumpled. The mask, the grin, the bravado, the loudness crumpled like paper in a fist, and underneath it was just a 7-year-old boy who'd never been told he was anyone's. He didn't cry. His eyes were wet, but the tears didn't fall. He clenched his jaw and squeezed her hand so hard it hurt and nodded once fast, like if he did it slow he'd fall apart. Okay, he said. Okay, yeah, okay. Okay. He climbed onto the bed, carefully, avoiding her wound, and sat beside her with his legs hanging off the edge, still holding her hand. And they sat like that as the afternoon sun moved across the room and the machines beeped their steady rhythm. The council meeting happened 4 days after that. Mikoto went in a wheelchair because the medics wouldn't let her walk yet, and she hated it. She dressed in clean clothes, dark, simple, no Uchiha crest, and pulled her hair back and looked like what she was. A woman who'd been cut open and put back together and was not in the mood for politics. The council chamber was circular, with tiered seating and the Hokkage's chair at the center of the high bench. The civilian council members were on one side. The Shinobi Council, the clan heads and senior jounin, on the other. Danzo Shimura sat at the far end of the high bench, half in shadow, his one visible eye fixed on Mikoto like a pin through a butterfly. She'd never liked Danzo. Nobody liked Danzo. But she'd respected him, once the way you respect a venomous snake for being efficient at what it does. That respect had died on the night of the massacre, buried under a suspicion she couldn't yet prove. "This is a simple matter," the Hokage began. "Mikoto Uchiha, sole surviving adult of the Uchiha clan, has requested legal guardianship of Naruto Uzumaki. Given the circumstances..." "Given the circumstances," Danzo interrupted, his voice dry and measured. "We should be questioning why a traumatized massacre survivor wants to take on the additional burden of a troubled orphan." "The boy saved her life," said Shikaku Nara from the shinobi side. He was leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, looking bored in the deliberate way that smart people used to disguise paying very close attention. "Seems straightforward to me. Emotional decisions made in the aftermath of trauma are rarely sound," Danzo said. "Mikoto has her own son to care for." "Sasuke's psychological state alone, my son's psychological state is my concern," Mikoto said. "Not yours. Everything in this village is my concern." "Is it?" She held his gaze, one eye against two. "Then perhaps you can explain why the village security apparatus failed to detect that one of its own Anbu captains was about to murder 128 people." The chamber went still. Several council members looked at each other. The Hokkage's pipe paused halfway to his mouth. Danzo's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eye, a recalculation, a reassessment of the woman in the wheelchair. "That investigation is ongoing," the Hokage said carefully, "and not the subject of today's session." "Of course," Mikoto said. She let the implication sit. She let Danzo feel the shape of what she knew and what she might say if pushed. "The subject is Naruto. I want custody. The legal basis is simple. I am a Jounin-level kunoichi of this village, financially stable through the Uchiha estate, and the boy has no other prospects. The orphanage system has failed him repeatedly. I am offering a home. The boy's unique nature makes this complicated," a civilian councilwoman said, her voice dripping with the kind of careful language people used when they meant the demon brat. "His condition requires specialized oversight." "His condition," Mikoto said flatly, "is that he's a 7-year-old who can't read. Whatever oversight you think he needs, it clearly hasn't been provided." "The Jinchuriki," Danzo began, "is a child," Mikoto said, "named Naruto, who saved my life, and I want to raise him." "Are there any legal grounds to refuse this? Real legal grounds, not fear-mongering?" She looked around the chamber. The clan heads, Shikaku, Inoichi, Choza, Tsume, Shibai, were watching with expressions ranging from sympathetic to calculating. The civilian side was more hostile, but uncertain. None of them wanted to be the person who denied the massacre's sole survivor a simple request. Not publicly. Not with the village still reeling from guilt. Hayashi Hyuga spoke. "I see no legal impediment. If Mikoto-san wishes to assume guardianship and the Hokage approves, the council's role here is advisory." "Noted," the Hokage said, and brought his pipe to his mouth, and that was the signal that the discussion was over. Danzo said nothing else. He watched Mikoto wheel herself out of the chamber with that single dark eye, and she could feel it on her back like a thumb pressed to the base of her spine. She didn't look back. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building in the civilian district. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a bathroom, a living room with a window that faced east so the mornings were bright. Mikoto had chosen it in a single visit, moving through the empty rooms in her wheelchair with the realtor trailing nervously behind her, and said, "This one," the way she'd once said. That technique during Anbu selection trials, with absolute certainty and no interest in alternatives. She spent 2 days furnishing it. Simple things. Beds, a table, chairs, kitchen supplies. She bought a set of kunai for the wall rack and a bookshelf that she filled with scrolls from a second-hand shop. She bought 2 futons, one large, one small, and sheets in dark blue because they didn't show stains. On the morning she brought Naruto home, the sky was clear and the apartment smelled like new tatami mats and fresh paint. Naruto stood in the doorway and looked at the living room. He looked at the kitchen. He walked down the short hallway and looked at the small bedroom with the futon and the desk and the window. Then he walked back to the living room and looked at it again. "This is real," he said. "This is real. The small room is mine. The small room is yours." He walked into it again. She heard him open and close the desk drawer, open and close the closet door, test the window lock. He came back out. "There's a closet." "Yes, a whole closet for me, just for my stuff. Just for your stuff." He was doing the jaw thing again, the clenching, the not crying. He walked past her into the kitchen and looked at the stove and the cabinets and the small table with its 2 chairs and the window above the sink. "Can I?" He stopped, recalibrated. "Do I have to ask before I eat stuff? Like from the kitchen?" The question hit her harder than the sword had. She gripped the handles of her wheelchair and kept her voice level. "No, this is your home. You eat when you're hungry." "Okay." He opened a cabinet, looked at the rice and the canned goods and the package of instant ramen she'd bought because the Hawkage had mentioned he liked it. Closed the cabinet, opened it again, closed it. "I'm going to make lunch," Mikoto said. "Come help me." She couldn't stand yet without pain, so she directed from the wheelchair and Naruto did the reaching and the stirring. Rice in the cooker, vegetables cut badly but cut. Fish from the cold box, seasoned the way she'd learned from her mother, grilled in the pan that popped and sizzled and filled the apartment with a smell that made it feel like someone actually lived there. They ate at the table. 2 chairs, 2 plates, 2 sets of chopsticks. Naruto ate like he was afraid the food would vanish, fast and desperate, and Mikoto didn't tell him to slow down. When he finished, he put his chopsticks down and stared at his empty plate and said, very quietly, "Thank you. You're welcome." "No, I mean," he looked up, "for all of it. Not just the food. For," he gestured vaguely at the apartment, at the room, at her, at the whole impossible fact of being wanted. Mikoto reached across the table and ruffled his hair. He stiffened at first, the stray animal reflex, and then leaned into it, just slightly, just enough. "Go unpack." She said, "We start training tomorrow." "Training?" His eyes went wide. "Like ninja training, you want to be a shinobi, don't you?" "I want to be Hawkage." He said it without hesitation, without embarrassment, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. And Mikoto looked at this scrawny, underfed, uneducated child with dried pudding on his sleeve and his heart blazing like a signal fire, and she thought, "Kushina, Minato, I see you in him. I see both of you." "Then we have a lot of work to do," she said. That night, Mikoto lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling and listened to the apartment settle around her. From the other room, she could hear Naruto breathing. He'd fallen asleep fast, the sleep of the truly exhausted or the truly safe. Maybe both. She pressed her hand to the scar on her stomach. She thought about Itachi's eyes in the dark. She thought about Fugaku's body on the floor. She thought about Sasuke, still in the hospital, still silent, still staring at walls. She'd bring him home in a few days when the medics cleared him. She'd hold him and he'd be stiff in her arms and she'd hold him anyway. She thought about Danzo's eye in the council chamber. The weight of it, the patience of it, he would come for her, not now, not openly. But eventually, in the quiet way he always did, through proxies and paperwork and whispered orders in dark rooms, he would try to undo what she was building. Because Danzo didn't want Naruto loved. Danzo wanted Naruto useful, a weapon without attachments, a Jinchuriki without a home to fight for. Mikoto stared at the ceiling and felt the scar tissue pull when she breathed and thought, "Let him try." From the other room, Naruto mumbled something in his sleep, something that sounded like closet, and then, softer, something that sounded like home. Mikoto closed her eyes. For the first time in 11 days, she slept. Chapter 2. What she gave him the first morning, Mikoto woke at 5, old habit. Shinobi habit. Her body didn't care that it was held together with stitches and medical chakra. It knew what time training started, and it started before the sun. She eased herself out of bed, testing her weight. The pain was there, deep, structural, the kind that lived in the muscle and reminded you that something vital had been rearranged. But she could stand. She could walk. She'd fought through worse during the Third War, though she'd been 20 years younger then and hadn't been cut open by her own son. She pushed that thought down. Filed it away in the growing cabinet of things she couldn't afford to feel yet. The apartment was quiet. Gray light was just beginning to creep through the kitchen window, and when Mikoto padded down the hallway and eased Naruto's door open an inch, she found him exactly where she expected, not in his futon. He was curled in the corner of the room, wedged between the wall and the desk, his blanket pulled off the bed and wrapped around him like a cocoon. His eyes were open. "Morning," she said. He blinked at her. No surprise, he'd probably been awake for a while. Couldn't sleep on the futon? "I slept." "Just," he shrugged inside his blanket cocoon. "The corner's better." She didn't push it. Children who'd grown up without safe spaces sought enclosed ones. She'd read that somewhere, years ago, in a scroll about wartime orphan psychology that she'd never expected to need. Get dressed. "We're starting." "Starting what?" "Come find out." She left his door open. 10 minutes later, he appeared in the kitchen wearing the same clothes as yesterday. She needed to buy him more. That was today's secondary objective. And found her sitting at the table with 2 cups of water, a blank scroll, a brush, and an ink stone. He sat down across from her and looked at the scroll with deep suspicion. "This doesn't look like ninja training." "It's not. It's a reading lesson." "A what?" "You told me you want to be Hawkage. The Hawkage reads and signs approximately 200 documents per day, reports, treaties, mission briefs, supply requisitions, legal rulings." She pushed the brush toward him. "Can you write your name?" He grabbed the brush, dipped it in the ink, and scratched out characters that were technically recognizable as Japanese letter, Japanese letter, Japanese letter if you squinted and were feeling generous. Mikoto looked at them. She kept her expression neutral, but inside, something cold settled in her chest. He was 7. He should have been able to write full sentences by now. The orphanage had a school program. The academy had prerequisites. Someone, somewhere, at every single step, had failed this child. "Okay," she said. "We'll start from the beginning." "I thought we were going to do cool stuff, like jutsu and Naruto." He stopped. A shinobi who can't read a mission scroll is a dead shinobi. A shinobi who can't write a report is a liability. A shinobi who doesn't understand the words in a treaty will lose more battles than any enemy could take from them. She picked up the second brush and wrote his name in clean, precise strokes. "Fundamentals first. Everything else is built on this. Can you trust me on that?" He looked at her handwriting, then at his. The gap between them was visible from across the room. She could see him processing it, not with shame exactly, but with the grim recognition of a kid who'd always known he was behind and never had anyone willing to help him catch up. "Yeah," he said. "Okay." They worked for 2 hours. Mikoto wrote characters and Naruto copied them, over and over, his tongue poking out between his teeth in concentration. His grip on the brush was wrong. His stroke order was backwards. He confused similar-looking kanji constantly. But he didn't quit, and he didn't complain, not really. He grumbled and fidgeted and at one point declared that the character for water was stupid and should be redesigned. But he kept going. By 7 o'clock, he could write his full name, the words fire, water, earth, and village. And a lopsided but legible version of Konoha. "Good," Mikoto said. "That's it, just good. What do you want, a parade?" He grinned at her, wide and sudden and real, and she felt something warm crack open in her chest. She hadn't smiled in 12 days. She didn't smile now. But she wanted to, and that wanting was its own small miracle. "Eat breakfast," she said. "Then we go outside." The training ground she chose was a small clearing behind the apartment building, bordered by trees on 3 sides and a low stone wall on the 4th. It wasn't an official shinobi training ground. Those required booking, and Mikoto didn't want the attention. Not yet. This was just a patch of grass with enough space to move and enough privacy to work. Naruto bounced on his toes as she walked, slowly, carefully, one hand ghosting near her wound, to the center of the clearing. Okay, so what are we doing? Fireballs? Kunai throwing? Oh, can you teach me that thing where you walk on walls? I saw an Anbu do it once and hit me. He stopped bouncing. What? Hit me? Punch, kick, whatever you want. Come at me, you're hurt. I'm aware. Hit me. He hesitated for another second, then shrugged and charged. He came in wild, no form, no guard, no plan. Just a running punch aimed at her midsection with all the technique of a thrown rock. Mikoto stepped left, caught his wrist as he went past, and redirected his momentum into a gentle spin that deposited him on his backside in the grass. He was up instantly. Again. He charged again. Same approach. She redirected him again, different angle this time, a slight push at the shoulder that turned him sideways and sent him stumbling. He got up. Again. Why are you doing the same thing? Because, he stopped, frowned. Because it's the only thing I know how to do. And there's the problem. She lowered herself to sit on the stone wall, slowly, because her abdomen was screaming at her. You have no foundation, no stance, no guard, no understanding of distance or timing. You run straight at a target and throw everything you have, and when it doesn't work, you do it again harder. That's pretty much it. It works against civilians and academy students. It gets you killed against anyone with real training. She patted the wall beside her. Sit, he sat. The first thing I'm going to teach you isn't a technique. It's a stance. How to stand, how to position your feet, how to hold your weight so that you can move in any direction at any time. We're going to practice it until your legs shake, and then we're going to practice it more. It will be boring. I can handle boring. We'll see. She couldn't demonstrate fully, not with her wound, so she talked him through it. Feet shoulder width, knees bent, weight centered slightly forward, hands up, relaxed, not fists yet, chin down, eyes up. He tried, he was terrible. His knees kept locking. His weight drifted backward. His hands dropped every time he shifted his attention to his feet. Mikoto corrected him with small touches, a tap on the knee, a push on the shoulder, a nudge at the hip, and each time he adjusted, and each time something else fell apart. This is harder than it looks. He muttered after 20 minutes. Everything worth doing is. That sounds like one of those things old people put on scrolls and hang on their walls. I'll buy a scroll, he laughed. She corrected his knee again. They worked on the stance for an hour. By the end, he could hold it for about 30 seconds before something slipped, which was acceptable for a first day and terrible by any absolute measure. Mikoto didn't tell him either of those things. She just said better and moved on. Now, chakra. Naruto perked up like a dog hearing a treat bag rustle. Chakra! Hold out your hand. He did. She placed her palm an inch above his and pushed a tiny thread of her own chakra toward him, a diagnostic technique, normally used by medics to assess a patient's chakra network. What she felt made her go very still. It was enormous. She'd known intellectually that a Jinchuriki would have unusual reserves. She'd read the theory. She'd heard Kushina talk about it, late at night, her hand on her swollen belly. I can already feel him, Mikoto. His chakra's so warm. But feeling it firsthand was different. Naruto's chakra wasn't just large, it was vast. An ocean of energy sitting inside a child's body, churning and wild and completely, utterly uncontrolled. No wonder he couldn't do basic exercises at the academy. Trying to perform a standard jutsu with this much chakra and no control was like trying to water a flower with a fire hose. The energy was there, absurdly, overwhelmingly there, but he had no way to regulate it. Am I doing it right? Naruto asked, looking at her face. You look weird. I look focused. You look like you bit a lemon. She pulled her hand back. Your chakra reserves are unusual. Good unusual or bad unusual? Large unusual. Much larger than normal for your age. It means standard chakra control exercises will be harder for you because you have more energy to manage. Think of it this way, if most people your age have a cup of water to control, you have a lake. So I'm bad at it because I have too much. You're not bad at it. You've never been taught. There's a difference. She reached into the pouch she'd brought and pulled out a leaf. "Put this on your forehead and hold it there with chakra. Just stick a leaf to my face. Stick a leaf to your face." He tried. The leaf blew off immediately like a tiny green projectile. He tried again. It tore in half. He tried again, and it burst into confetti, and Mikoto watched the pieces flutter to the grass and recalibrated her entire training plan on the spot. "Okay," she said. "Different approach." She had him try tree walking instead. Not on a tree, on the stone wall, which was only waist-high so the falls wouldn't hurt. She explained the principle. Channel chakra to the soles of your feet. Use it to stick to the surface. Too much and you blast off. Too little and you slide. Naruto put his foot on the wall and pushed chakra to it and cracked the stone. He stared at the crack. Mikoto stared at the crack. "Sorry," he said. "Don't apologize. That tells me something useful. That I'm gonna break all your stuff. That we need to approach your control from the opposite direction." She stood up, ignoring the protest from her abdomen. "Most students learn to push chakra outward. You need to learn to pull it inward. To suppress, to regulate, to turn the lake into a stream. We'll start with meditation." "Meditation? That's just sitting. It's the hardest thing I'll ever teach you." He looked deeply skeptical. She sat him down in the grass, cross-legged, hands on his knees, and told him to close his eyes and feel his chakra moving through his body. Just feel it. Don't push it. Don't pull it. Just notice. He lasted about 90 seconds before opening one eye. "I don't feel anything." "Close your eye." He closed it, opened it again. "Okay, maybe I feel something. It's like a buzzing." "That's a start. Close your eye. It's kind of everywhere, like not just one place." "It's in my stomach a lot, though. There's something," he frowned, eyes still closed now. "Something else in there, something that isn't me." Mikoto's breath caught. She steadied herself. "What does it feel like?" "Hot, heavy, kind of angry." He opened his eyes. Is that normal?" She'd planned to tell him about the fox later. Much later. On a day when they were both ready for it. But Naruto was looking at her with those clear blue eyes, and she could see the question forming behind them, and she remembered what she'd told the Hokage. Never lie to me about Naruto again. She couldn't demand honesty and then practice dishonesty. Not with this boy, not with anyone ever again, but not today. Today was the first day. Today was stances and reading and leaf exercises. Today was foundation. "That's something we'll talk about," she said. "Soon, I promise. For today, I want you to focus on your energy, the buzzing, not the hot part. Yours." He watched her for a moment, processing, deciding whether to push. Then he nodded slowly and closed his eyes again. He meditated for 4 minutes. Then he fell asleep sitting up and toppled over into the grass, snoring. Mikoto let him sleep. She sat on the cracked stone wall and watched him breathe and began making lists in her head. Things to teach, things to buy, things to fix. A curriculum that would take years to execute, built for a student with unlimited energy and zero fundamentals, and a chakra reservoir that could level a building. She was still making lists when a shadow fell across the clearing. "Quite the project you've taken on." Mikoto didn't turn. She didn't need to. She knew the voice, lazy, amused, deliberately unimpressed. She'd known it since she was 16. "Kakashi," she said. Kakashi Hatake leaned against the tree at the edge of the clearing, his orange book open in one hand, his visible eye curved in that false smile he wore like armor. He was in his Jounin vest, Hidayate tilted over his left eye, looking like he'd just wandered past on his way to somewhere more interesting. He hadn't wandered anywhere. Kakashi didn't wander. Every step he took was deliberate, even especially the ones that looked casual. "Heard you got custody of the Uzumaki kid," he said. "Congratulations, the paperwork alone must have been murder." He paused. "Sorry, poor word choice. Did you come here to test my patience, or is there a purpose? Can't it be both?" He turned a page in his book, didn't read it. "The Hokage asked me to check in, unofficially, make sure you're settling in. Make sure." His eye drifted to Naruto, asleep in the grass. "Everything is okay. Everything is fine. You're 3 weeks out from surgery, training a child in a field behind a civilian apartment building, and you just cracked a stone wall." He looked at the wall. Or he did, from the chakra residue. Impressive for a 7-year-old. Did the Hokage send you, or did Danzo? The fake smile didn't waver, but something behind it shifted. The Hokage. Danzo doesn't send me anywhere. Danzo sends everyone somewhere. Most people just don't realize they've been sent. She finally turned to look at him. You were Minato's student. Kakashi's smile died. It didn't fade, it just stopped, like someone had turned off a light. His visible eye went flat. Yes. And you know who Naruto's father is? Yes. Have you ever visited him before this? Even once, the silence was long enough to have weather. No, Kakashi said. Why not? Because I'm a coward. He said it simply, without drama, and closed his book. Because looking at him means looking at everything I failed, and I've spent 13 years building a very comfortable fortress of avoidance. Because I told myself the Anbu detail watching him was enough, and I knew it wasn't, and I didn't change anything. He met her eyes. Is that what you wanted to hear? I wanted to hear the truth. That sounded like it. It was. He pushed off the tree. He's Minato-sensei's son, and Kushina's. I see them both in him and it's. He stopped. Reset. You're doing a good thing, Mikoto. I came to say that mostly, and to say that if you need help with training, with resources, with Danzo, I'm available. Since when do you volunteer for things? Since I stood in a field and watched a woman teach my sensei's son how to stand and realized I should have been doing it myself for the last 7 years. He raised a hand in a lazy wave. I'll be around. He disappeared. Body flicker. No smoke, no sound. Just gone, the way only elite shinobi could manage. Mikoto stared at the space where he'd been and filed the conversation away. Kakashi was useful. Kakashi was also damaged and unpredictable and deeply avoidant, and trusting him fully would be a mistake. But having him as an ally was better than having him as nothing. In the grass, Naruto rolled over and mumbled, "Was someone here?" A stray cat. Huh, he yawned. We still training, we never stopped. Get up, stance practice. He groaned, but he got up, and they worked until the sun was directly overhead and his legs gave out. The weeks folded into a rhythm. Mornings were academics. Reading, writing, arithmetic, history, geography. Mikoto discovered that Naruto wasn't stupid, not even close. He was clever in ways that formal education didn't measure. He could solve spatial problems in his head faster than she could set them up. He could read people, their moods, their intentions, their discomfort, with an accuracy that would have made Inoichi Yamanaka raise an eyebrow. He remembered conversations word for word weeks after they'd happened, but he couldn't sit still. He couldn't focus on text for more than 15 minutes before his attention scattered. He learned by doing, by arguing, by making mistakes and yelling about them. He needed to understand why something mattered before he'd commit to learning it. Tell him memorize these kanji, and he'd stare out the window. Tell him these kanji are on explosive tags, and if you misread one, you'll blow your own hand off, and he'd have them memorized by lunch. Mikoto adapted. She rewrote every lesson around consequence and context. History became war stories, real ones, not textbook summaries, the kind where decisions mattered and mistakes killed people. Math became supply calculation. You have 12 kunai and 3 teammates and a mission that lasts 5 days. How do you distribute? Reading became mission scrolls, real ones she'd kept from her active duty years, with names redacted but scenarios intact. He devoured it. Once the material was alive, once it breathed and bled and mattered, he couldn't get enough. Afternoons were physical. Taijutsu stances, which he practiced until his legs stopped shaking and then practiced more. Chakra control, which remained his worst subject by a staggering margin. She'd moved him from the leaf exercise to water walking on the shallow fountain in the park. And for the first 2 weeks, he fell in so many times that the civilian residents started bringing towels and watching like it was entertainment. His progress wasn't linear. It was jagged, plateaus and breakthroughs and regressions, and sudden leaps that defied everything Mikoto knew about training curves. He'd spend 3 days unable to stick a single leaf to his skin, and then on the 4th day, he'd stick 12 at once and not know how he'd done it. He'd nail a taijutsu form perfectly in the morning and forget it completely by afternoon. His body learned differently than his mind, and both of them learned differently than any student she'd ever seen. She stopped comparing him to other students. She stopped comparing him to Sasuke or to Itachi or to anyone. He was Naruto. He learned like Naruto, and once she accepted that and built around it instead of against it, the progress came faster. 6 weeks after she brought him home, she taught him the clone jutsu. The standard one Bunshin, the academy requirement. He failed it spectacularly. The clone that appeared was a pale, deflated, vaguely Naruto-shaped lump that collapsed on the ground like a half-filled water balloon. "This is the worst thing I've ever made," Naruto said, staring at it. "Your chakra's too dense for this technique. It's a low-energy illusion, and you're flooding it with 10 times the required input." Mikoto was sitting on the porch of their apartment, legs crossed, watching him in the small yard. "This is a control problem, not a talent problem." "So I'm too strong for it. You're too uncontrolled for it. There's a difference." "Is there a version that uses more chakra, like a better version?" She paused. She'd been thinking about this for a while. The shadow clone technique, Cage Bunshin, was a forbidden jutsu, classified, restricted to Jounin and above. It required enormous chakra and distributed the user's energy evenly among all clones. For most people, making even a handful would be dangerous. Chakra exhaustion, collapse, death. For Naruto, with his ocean of chakra, it was too soon. He was 7. The technique was forbidden for a reason. She needed to think about it, plan for it, make sure he was ready. "Maybe," she said. "Not today, but there is one. We'll get there. Patience." He kicked the deflated clone and it poofed into nothing. "I hate patience." "I know." She made dinner that night, grilled mackerel, rice, soup, vegetables that Naruto picked out and she put back on his plate without comment. They ate at the table, and Naruto talked about the training, and the stupid clone jutsu, and the family of ducks he'd seen at the park fountain during water walking practice. And Mikoto listened and nodded and corrected his chopstick grip, and felt the apartment fill up with the sound of life in a way that made the walls feel less like a container and more like a home. After dinner, she washed the dishes. Naruto dried. He'd started doing this without being asked, about 3 weeks in, just appeared at her elbow one night with a towel, and they'd fallen into the routine without discussion. "Hey, Mikoto-san?" That thing, in my stomach, the hot thing." He was looking at the plate he was drying, not at her. "You said we'd talk about it." She turned off the water, dried her hands, sat down at the table and patted the chair next to her. He sat. "What I'm about to tell you is classified," she said. "Do you know what that means? Secret. The kind of secret that has legal consequences if you share it. People who know this aren't allowed to discuss it publicly. The Third Hokage made a law about it specifically." She paused. "But you have a right to know. It's about your body. It's about you." Naruto was very still. The grinning, fidgeting, bouncing boy was gone. In his place was the other Naruto, the watchful one, the one who'd survived 7 years alone by reading danger before it arrived. "On the night you were born," Mikoto said, "the village was attacked by the 9-tailed fox, the Kyuubi." "I know that part. Everyone knows that." "The 4th Hokage killed it." "The 4th Hokage didn't kill it. A tailed beast can't be killed. It can only be sealed." She held his gaze. "Naruto, the 4th Hokage sealed the Kyuubi inside a newborn child, inside you. That's what you're feeling, the fox's chakra, contained by a seal on your stomach." He didn't react the way she expected. There was no explosion, no tears, no shouting. He just sat there, processing, his blue eyes fixed on hers, and she could almost see the pieces clicking together behind them. The stares, the hatred, the whispered words, the thrown objects, the doors closed in his face, the orphanage matron's fear-ed face. "That's why," he said. "Yes, they think I'm the fox. They're wrong. You are not the fox. You are its container, its jailer, if anything. The seal keeps it locked away. You are Naruto Uzumaki. The fox is a prisoner in your body, not the other way around. But they don't see it that way. Most people are afraid of what they don't understand." He looked down at his stomach, lifted his shirt. There was nothing visible. The seal only appeared when chakra was actively channeled through it, but he stared at the skin like he could see through it. Is that why I have so much chakra? Partly. The fox's presence has expanded your reserves far beyond normal. Your own chakra is also naturally large. Your mother had enormous reserves as well. The words were out before she could stop them. She watched Naruto's head snap up. My mother, Mikoto closed her eyes. She'd planned to tell him about his parents later, after the fox. After he'd had time to absorb one revelation before getting hit with another. But the words had slipped out, carried by the rhythm of the conversation and the habit of honesty she'd committed to. She opened her eyes. Your mother's name was Kushina Uzumaki. She was my closest friend. Naruto's mouth was open. No sound. She was from the Uzumaki clan, that's your family name, your real one. She came to Konoha from the land of whirlpools when she was young. She was loud and stubborn, and she had red hair that she hated when she was a girl and loved when she grew up. She could eat more ramen than any 3 people combined. She was the strongest kunoichi I ever knew, and she loved you more than anything in the world. His voice cracked. She's dead. She died the night you were born, the night of the fox attack. And my dad, this was the dangerous part. The classified part, the part that could bring Anbu to their door if the wrong person heard it. Your father was the one who sealed the fox inside you. He did it to save the village, and he chose his own son because he believed you were strong enough to bear it. She put her hand on his. Your father was the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. The silence that followed was so complete that Mikoto could hear the drip of the kitchen faucet. 3 drops. 4, 5, the 4th Hokage, Naruto whispered. Yes, the 4th Hokage is my dad. Yes, the guy on the mountain. The face on the mountain. That's he stood up. The chair scraped back. He walked to the window and pressed his forehead against the glass and stared out at the night sky. And Mikoto could see the monument from here. 4 stone faces lit by moonlight, and the 4th one looking out over the village with carved eyes that couldn't see the sun he'd left behind. Why didn't anyone tell me? His voice was small, because it's classified. Your father had enemies. The 3rd Hokage believed that hiding your parentage would protect you. Protect me. He turned from the window. His eyes were bright but dry. I got thrown out of an orphanage. I've been sleeping on benches. People spit on me in the street. That's protection. Mikoto had no answer. There was no answer. The 3rd Hokage's logic had been sound on paper. Enemies of the 4th would target his son. Anonymity was safer, but the execution had been a catastrophe. Anonymity had become neglect. Secrecy had become abandonment. The son of a hero had been raised as a pariah, and no amount of classified reasoning could justify it. I know, she said. It wasn't enough. It wasn't right. Did my mom know? About the seal, did she agree to it? She was there when it happened. She and your father both chose it together. They believed in you. Mikoto stood and crossed to him. Naruto, your parents loved you. They died for you and for this village. And I know that doesn't fix any of what happened after, but it is the truth, and you deserve to hear it a long time ago. He leaned against the window frame. She could see him shaking, not the bone-deep tremors from the night of the massacre, but something finer, something that vibrated at the frequency of a life being rewritten. Do you have pictures? He asked. Of them, she did. Not many, a handful from her years with Kushina. She went to her room and came back with a small photo album, worn at the edges. She'd recovered it from the compound along with a few essentials, in a single agonizing trip supervised by Anbu. Most of what the album contained was Uchiha family portraits, clan gatherings, a younger Mikoto with a baby Itachi on her hip. She turned past those pages without lingering. The photo she wanted was near the back. Kushina and Mikoto, 22, standing in front of the dumpling shop on 3rd Street. Kushina was laughing, her red hair wild around her face, one arm thrown around Mikoto's shoulders. Mikoto was smiling, a real smile, the kind she hadn't worn in years. That's her, Mikoto said. That's your mother. Naruto took the album with both hands. He held it like it might dissolve. He stared at Kushina's face for a long time, tracing the shape of it with his eyes, cataloging the similarities, the round face, the wide grin, the way her eyes squinted when she laughed. She looks like me, he said. You look like both of them. You have her face and his coloring, and her stubbornness, which I assure you is genetic. Something broke loose in him, not violently, but like ice cracking in spring. A tear escaped down his cheek, just one. He wiped it fast. Can I keep this? The picture? I'll have a copy made. The album stays with me. There are other photos I need to protect. He nodded. He looked at the photo one more time, then carefully closed the album and set it on the table and sat back down. Mikoto-san. Yes, thank you for telling me. You had a right to know. Yeah, but... He looked at her with an expression far too old for 7. Nobody ever tells me things. They just keep stuff from me and say it's for my own good. You actually told me, even the bad stuff. I will always tell you the truth, even when it's hard. That's a promise. He held her gaze for a moment, then nodded once, firm, the way he did when he'd decided something was real. Okay. Okay? Yeah, okay. My dad's the 4th Hokage and there's a giant demon fox in my stomach and my mom could eat a lot of ramen. Okay. He took a breath. Can we keep training tomorrow? We're training every day. Good, because I've got a lot of catching up to do. He went to bed. Mikoto sat at the table with the photo album in her lap and pressed her fingers to the image of Kushina's laughing face and whispered, I've got him, I promise. I've got him. The next morning, Mikoto did something she'd been planning since the day she felt Naruto's chakra. She took him to an open training field on the edge of the village, a real one this time, training ground 14, which she'd reserved under her Jounin clearance. It was a wide field with a river on one side and a tree line on the other, with wooden posts for target practice and enough space to make noise without attracting attention. Today, she said, I'm going to teach you a technique that is classified as forbidden. Naruto's eyes went saucer-wide. Forbidden, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, the shadow clone technique. Unlike the basic clone, which is an illusion, shadow clones are solid, physical, real. They can be hit, and interact with the world. They require enormous chakra, which is why they're restricted to high-level shinobi. For most people, making even 1 or 2 would be dangerous. But not for me. Not for you. Your reserves are large enough to support dozens, maybe more. She held up a finger. But there's a reason I'm teaching you this now, and it's not just combat. Shadow clones have a property that makes them the most powerful training tool in existence. When a clone dispels, everything it learned, every experience, every piece of information transfers back to the original. Naruto stared at her. She could see the gears turning. So if I make 10 clones and they all practice something, you get 10 times the practice, in the same amount of time. That's cheating. That's efficiency. The technique has limits. Physical conditioning doesn't transfer. Your body won't get stronger from clone training. And the mental feedback from too many clones dispelling at once can be overwhelming. We'll start small. She formed the cross-shaped seal. Watch. She made a single shadow clone. It stepped out beside her, identical in every way, and waved at Naruto. Hey there, the clone said. Whoa. Naruto circled the clone, poked it. It poked him back. It's real, like actually real. Cross-shaped hand seal, Mikoto said. Channel your chakra evenly. Don't try to regulate it the way I've been teaching you for regular techniques. This jutsu wants large amounts. Pour it in. Let it flow. Naruto formed the seal. She could feel his chakra surge, not the careful trickle she'd been training him toward, but the full, unrestrained torrent of his natural reserves. The air around him shimmered. There was a sound like 100 fists punching air simultaneously. The field was full of Narutos, not dozens, not 50. Mikoto counted and stopped counting and started again and stopped again because there were at least 200 of them. They filled the training ground from the river to the tree line, standing shoulder to shoulder, all of them grinning, all of them looking around at each other with identical expressions of wild delight. I made a lot, Naruto said. You made a lot, Mikoto agreed. Her voice was steady. Her heart was hammering. 200 shadow clones, from a 7-year-old. The chakra cost alone would have killed a Jounin 3 times over, and Naruto was standing there looking slightly winded, like he'd jogged up a long flight of stairs. Kushina, Mikoto thought. Minato. Your son is going to be something this world has never seen. Okay, she said, and pointed at the clones. All of you. Groups of 20. Group 1, Taijutsu stances by the river. Group 2, leaf concentration exercises under the trees. Group 3. She organized them like a platoon commander, which is what she'd been once, in a different life. The clones scattered to their assignments with varying degrees of enthusiasm and discipline. The original Naruto stayed with her, vibrating with energy. "This is the best jutsu ever," he said. "This is a tool, a powerful one. The best jutsu is the one that keeps you alive." She nudged him toward the river. "You're with Group 1, go." He went. She watched him run across the field, weaving between his own copies, and she thought about the math. 200 clones training simultaneously. If she ran sessions 3 hours long, that was 600 hours of skill building in a single afternoon. Even at half efficiency, clones were imperfect learners. The acceleration was staggering. The gap between Naruto and his future academy classmates wouldn't just close, it would invert. She sat on the grass and let herself feel a moment of something close to satisfaction, and then she heard the rustle behind her and the satisfaction died. "Impressive," said a voice from the tree line. 2 figures stepped out of the shadows. Anbu, but wrong. Their masks were blank, no animal design, no identification marks. Root, Danzo's personal operatives. They moved without sound and stood without posture, empty as dolls. Mikoto stood. Her wound protested. She ignored it. "You're on a reserved training ground," she said. "This area is booked under my clearance. Leave." Danzo-sama requests a conversation. The speaker, taller, thin, a short sword strapped to his back, delivered the words without inflection. "Regarding the boy, Danzo-sama can submit a formal request through the Hokage's office." "This is informal." "I don't have informal conversations with masked strangers in fields where my child is training." Something shifted in the posture of the second root agent. Not much. A fractional change in weight distribution, a subtle loosening of the shoulders. Mikoto registered it the way a spider registers vibration in its web, instantly, instinctively, with a complete understanding of what it meant. She moved before the agent did. The fireball wasn't large. She didn't have the chakra for large, not in her condition, not 3 weeks out from surgery. But it was precise. A compact sphere of flame that streaked across the space between them and detonated against the ground at the second agent's feet, forcing both root operatives to leap backward. Across the field, every single Naruto clone turned to look. Mikoto stood with her hand extended, smoke curling from her fingers, her Sharingan blazing in both eyes. She hadn't activated it in years. The spinning Tamo of the 3 Tamo Sharingan cast faint red light across her cheekbones, and the 2 root agents went completely still. "I was Anbu track before I married Fugaku," she said, her voice conversational. "Calm, the way fire is calm before it eats a building. I completed the selection trials. I was offered a position. I turned it down because my clan expected me to be a wife and mother, and I was young enough to believe that was all I could be." She lowered her hand. "I'm not young anymore, and I'm not interested in being what anyone expects me to be, so here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this training ground. You're going to tell Danzo that if he wants to talk to me, he can do it in daylight, in public, without masks. And if he sends his puppets near my son again," the Sharingan spun, "I'll send them back in smaller pieces. Are we clear?" The agents looked at each other. The silent communication of trained operatives. Then the taller one inclined his head, the barest millimeter of acknowledgement, and they vanished. Mikoto let the Sharingan fade. The world dimmed back to normal color, and her head throbbed and her wound burned, and she sat down on the grass hard. "Mikoto-san," Naruto was running toward her, the real one, his face tight with concern. "What was that? Who were those guys?" "Nobody important. They had swords." "A lot of people in this village have swords. It's a ninja village. You threw fire at them. They were on our training ground without permission. It was rude." He studied her face with that sharp, people-reading intelligence that no amount of neglect had managed to dull. He didn't believe her. She could see that he didn't. But he also understood, in the wordless way that survivors understand, that some fights happen above your weight class and the smartest thing to do is train harder. "Teach me that," he said. "The fire thing, you're not ready for fire release." When you can hold a leaf on your forehead for 5 minutes without burning it, freezing it, or launching it into orbit. He looked at her for one more moment, reading, calculating. Then he grinned, the real grin, the defiant one. 5 minutes, got it. He ran back to his clones. Mikoto watched him go and pressed her hand against her wound and thought about Danzo in his dark office, receiving the report from his agents, reassessing, replanning. He wouldn't stop. This wasn't the kind of thing Danzo stopped about. He'd probe again, different angle, different approach. Maybe through the civilian council. Maybe through the academy. Maybe through Sasuke, whose psychological vulnerability made him a perfect pressure point. Sasuke. She needed to bring him home. The medics had cleared him 2 days ago. He was in a temporary care facility, silent and hollow-eyed, and every day she delayed was a day Danzo had access. Tomorrow. She'd bring Sasuke home tomorrow. She watched 200 Narutos practice taijutsu stances by the river, a sea of blonde and orange moving in rough unison, and she let herself feel the second thing. Not satisfaction this time, something bigger. Pride. Sasuke came home on a Tuesday. He stood in the doorway of the apartment and looked at the living room the way Naruto had, but where Naruto had seen possibility, Sasuke saw wrongness. This wasn't their house. This wasn't the compound. This wasn't the home where his mother had cooked breakfast and his father had read scrolls and his brother had. He stopped that thought with the efficiency of someone who'd already learned to self-amputate. "Your room is there," Mikoto said gently, pointing down the hall. "Next to Naruto's." Sasuke looked at Naruto, who was standing in the kitchen doorway with an expression that was trying very hard to be welcoming and landing somewhere around constipated. "Hi," Naruto said. "Why is he here?" Sasuke asked his mother. The words were flat, not cruel exactly, just empty. He said them the way you'd ask about a piece of furniture you didn't remember buying. "Naruto lives with us," Mikoto said. "I told you about this at the hospital. You told me. I didn't agree." "You're 8 years old, Sasuke. This isn't a negotiation." He looked at her then, and the emptiness in his eyes flickered with something hotter. She recognized it. She'd seen it in Fugaku when the clan council overruled him, in Itachi when the elders pushed too hard. Uchiha anger. It burned cold. "I want to go home," Sasuke said. "This is home now." "This isn't home. Home is the compound. I want to go back to Sasuke." She knelt in front of him, ignoring the pull of her scar, and took his hands. He tried to pull away. She held on. "The compound is empty. There's nothing there anymore. I know it hurts. I know this is wrong and hard, and nothing about it is fair. But this is where we live now, and I need you to try." His jaw clenched. He didn't pull his hands away again, but he didn't hold hers back either. His fingers were limp in her grip, deliberate in their passivity, and Mikoto felt the distance between them like a physical gap. "Fine," he said. He pulled free and walked to his room and closed the door and didn't come out for dinner. Naruto looked at the closed door, then at Mikoto. "He hates me." "He doesn't hate you. He doesn't know you. He's in pain." "Yeah, well, I know what pain looks like, and that kid," he stopped himself, looked at his feet. "Want me to bring him a plate? Leave him. He'll eat when he's ready." Naruto ate dinner alone with her that night. He was quieter than usual, glancing at Sasuke's door every few minutes. When Mikoto went to bed, she stopped outside Sasuke's room and listened. Silence. Not the silence of sleep. The silence of someone lying in the dark with their eyes open, replaying the worst night of their life on an endless loop. She pressed her palm to the door. She didn't open it. She didn't have the right words yet, and wrong words would be worse than silence. She went to bed and didn't sleep. In the morning, Sasuke's plate was on the counter, scraped clean. He'd eaten sometime in the night. Small victories. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Mikoto's life, and she'd lived through war and massacre, and the death of her husband and the betrayal of her firstborn. Sasuke wouldn't talk to Naruto. He wouldn't train with Naruto. He wouldn't sit at the table if Naruto was there. He moved through the apartment like a ghost, appearing only when Naruto was out, eating when no one was watching, responding to Mikoto's questions in monosyllables. He'd agreed to let her train him. He wanted to get stronger. That was the one thing he'd expressed clearly, but he insisted on separate sessions. Different time, different place. He went through what I went through, right? Naruto said one morning during their reading lesson. Sasuke was in his room with the door shut. The massacre, he was there. He was there. Itachi, she chose her words. Itachi put him under a genjutsu. He made Sasuke watch. Naruto's pencil stopped moving. Watch what? Everything. The pencil didn't move for a long time. Then Naruto set it down and said, very carefully, "That's the most evil thing I've ever heard." Yes. And he was my son. Yes. The look Naruto gave her was not pity. It was something sharper and more respectful than pity recognition. An understanding that she was carrying something enormous and still standing. "I'm gonna get Sasuke to talk to me," he said. "I don't care how long it takes. Don't force it. Grief isn't a puzzle you can solve." "Yeah, but loneliness is, and he's lonely. I know what lonely looks like." He went back to his reading lesson, and Mikoto looked at the top of his blonde head and marveled at the capacity for empathy in a child the world had given every reason to be selfish. It took 3 weeks. Naruto tried everything. He left notes under Sasuke's door, badly spelled, mostly doodles, sometimes just a drawn, smiley face. He cooked rice balls and left them on Sasuke's desk. He challenged Sasuke to spar through the closed door and got silence in response. He told jokes through the wall that were objectively terrible and got a muffled "shut up" for his trouble, which he counted as progress. The breakthrough came on a Thursday night. Mikoto was in her room, reading when she heard it, a sound from the living room. Not an argument, something else. She eased her door open and looked down the hall and saw them. Naruto was sitting on the floor, cross-legged, with a deck of cards spread out in front of him. Sasuke was sitting across from him, outside his room in the shared space for the first time in 3 weeks, looking at the cards with an expression of withering contempt. "That's not how you play," Sasuke said. "Yeah, it is. You put the red ones on the black ones. That's not a real game. You're making up rules. All rules are made up. That's what rules are. That's the stupidest thing anyone has ever said to me. So teach me the real rules, if you're so smart." Sasuke stared at him. Naruto stared back. The moment stretched, balanced on an edge. Sasuke reached forward, gathered the cards, and started shuffling with the quick, precise movements of a boy who'd grown up in a household that valued skill in all things. "This is how you play," he said, and dealt. Mikoto closed her door and sat on her bed and pressed her hands to her face and breathed. Training evolved. By the 3rd month, Naruto's foundation had solidified to the point where Mikoto could begin layering real technique on top of it. His taijutsu was still rough. He'd never have the elegant precision of an Uchiha or a Hyuga, but it was effective. He moved well, he hit hard, and he'd stopped telegraphing his attacks 3 steps in advance. His chakra control remained a work in progress, but the shadow clone workaround meant he could brute force his way through exercises that would have taken other students months. She started him on elemental manipulation. A chakra paper test revealed what she'd suspected: wind nature. Rare in Konoha. Useful. She didn't know wind techniques, fire was her element, but she knew the theory, and she could teach him to cut a leaf with pure chakra as a starting exercise. He cut the leaf on the 2nd day. 40 shadow clones, simultaneous practice, and he walked up to her holding 2 perfect halves with a grin so wide it nearly split his face. "Show off," she said. "You love it." She did. She wouldn't say it, but she did. Fire release came next. Not for Naruto. For Sasuke, who'd finally, grudgingly, allowed his training sessions to overlap with Naruto's. He still wouldn't spar with Naruto directly. He still maintained a careful distance, like a cat that had decided to tolerate a dog but wanted everyone to know it was under protest. But he'd sit on the same field. He'd watch Naruto train, and occasionally, when he thought no one was looking, he'd try to copy whatever Naruto had just learned. "He's watching me," Naruto reported one afternoon. "I know. Should I, do something? You're doing it. Keep training." She taught Sasuke the great fireball technique, the Uchiha rite of passage, the technique Fugaku had used to measure his son's worth. Sasuke learned it in 2 days, which was fast by any measure, and the fireball he produced was clean and hot and perfectly controlled. "Good," Mikoto said. Sasuke looked at her, waited. She could see what he was waiting for, the comparison. Your brother learned it in 1 day, the measuring stick that Fugaku had held over him every day of his life, the impossible standard of Itachi, the weight of never being enough. "Really good, Sasuke," she said. "Your control is excellent, better than mine at your age." Something shifted in his face, not a smile. Not yet. But the clenched jaw loosened by a fraction and he turned away quickly, but not before she saw his eyes go bright. She didn't compare him to Itachi. She would never compare him to Itachi. That was the smallest, most important gift she could give him, the absence of a shadow. 4 months in, Mikoto had a visitor. She was alone in the apartment, both boys at the academy for placement testing, a formality before their official enrollment when the knock came. Not the front door. The window. She opened it and found Jiraiya of the Sannin crouched on her window ledge like a particularly large and flamboyant toad. "Yo," he said. Mikoto stared at him. She'd met Jiraiya exactly twice before, once at Minato and Kushina's wedding, once at a village festival where he'd been drunk and performing puppet shows for children that were borderline inappropriate. He was enormous up close. White-haired, red-lined, broad as a wall. "Use the door," she said. "Doors are for people without style." He climbed through the window anyway, folding his massive frame through the opening with surprising grace. He straightened up in her living room and looked around. At the bookshelf, the training scrolls on the table, the 2 pairs of small sandals by the front door. "So," he said, "you're raising Minato's kid." "I am." "How is he?" "He's brilliant and stubborn and maddening and learning faster than anyone I've ever trained." Jiraiya's expression softened. It was subtle, the big, boisterous exterior smoothed out for just a moment, revealing something underneath that looked a lot like regret. "I should have been here," he said. "After Minato died, I should have taken the kid. I'm his godfather." "Yes, you should have," he flinched. She didn't soften it. There were reasons. My intelligence network Orochimaru, threats that needed, there are always reasons. Naruto ate out of trash cans, Jiraiya. He slept on benches. He was 7 years old and alone in a village that treated him like a disease. Whatever your reasons were, they weren't good enough. The big man sat down heavily on the couch. It creaked under him. He ran a hand through his white hair and didn't argue, which told her more about his character than anything else could have. A man who didn't defend himself when he knew he was wrong. "I know," he said. "I know they weren't. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here because—" He pulled something from inside his vest. A scroll, old, sealed with wax marked with the Namikaze crest. Minato left this. It was in his personal vault, sealed with blood recognition. It can only be opened by family. By Naruto. By Naruto. I've been carrying it for 7 years, telling myself I'd deliver it when the time was right. The time was never right because I was never here. He set the scroll on the table. "It's a letter and instructions for the seal." Mikoto looked at the scroll. Minato's handwriting was visible on the edge, cramped, precise, unmistakable. "He anticipated this," she said. "Minato, he planned for Naruto to need guidance with the seal. Minato planned for everything. It was his gift and his curse." Jiraiya leaned back. The letter explains the seal's structure, its fail-safes, and how Naruto can eventually learn to access the fox's chakra safely. There's also, he hesitated. There's a message, personal, father to son. Mikoto's hand hovered over the scroll. She pulled it back. This is Naruto's. He'll open it when he's ready. You're not curious? I'm very curious. It's still his. Jiraiya studied her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a real laugh, deep and warm. Kushina picked well. You're exactly the person who should be raising her son. Kushina didn't pick me. A 7-year-old boy dragged me off a set of stairs. Maybe she guided his feet. He stood up. I'll be in the village for a while. Checking in on my network, annoying Sarutobi, visiting the hot springs for purely research purposes. If you want help with his training, specifically the seal or sage-related techniques later, I'm available. I'll keep that in mind. He moved toward the window, then stopped. One more thing. Danzo's been making noise about the Jinchuriki's placement. Quiet noise through back channels, but I hear everything. He wants oversight rights, formal access to Naruto's training schedule, progress reports, the works. He can want. He's persistent. So am I, Jiraiya smiled. It was a different smile than the public one, smaller, sharper, the smile of a man who'd lived through 3 wars and recognized a fighter when he saw one. Yeah, he said. I can see that. He left through the window. Mikoto locked it behind him and sat at the table and looked at Minato's scroll and thought about the man who'd sealed a demon inside his own newborn son and written him a letter because he knew he wouldn't be there to explain. She put the scroll in the lockbox under her bed, next to the photo album and a folder of documents she was slowly compiling. Documents about the massacre, about Danzo, about the orders that had come before Itachi drew his sword. The evidence was incomplete, fragments, implications. But the shape of it was becoming clear, and the shape was monstrous. She locked the box and went to the kitchen and started cooking, and when the boys came home from their placement tests, Naruto loud and triumphant, Sasuke quiet and perfect scored, the apartment smelled like home, and the secrets stayed where she'd put them. For now. The night before academy enrollment, Mikoto sat both boys down at the table. Naruto was bouncing. Sasuke was still. Between them, an empty chair that nobody mentioned, the chair that should have been Fugaku's or Itachi's, the chair that represented every absence in their fractured family. Tomorrow you start at the academy, Mikoto said. Different things for each of you. She looked at Sasuke. You'll be the top of your class. I know this because you're talented and disciplined and you've been training seriously for years. People will expect greatness from you because of your name. Ignore them. Train for yourself, not for expectations, and if anyone asks about the massacre, I'll handle it, Sasuke said. You don't owe them answers. Your pain is not public property. He nodded. A small, tight motion. She looked at Naruto. You'll be underestimated. Some teachers will be hostile. Some students will repeat what their parents say about you. Your instinct will be to prove them wrong loudly and immediately. Because they're wrong. They are wrong, but proving it through action is more powerful than proving it through volume. Let your skills speak. When you fight, fight clean and fight smart. When they try to bait you, smile and walk away. When they realize they were wrong about you and they will be gracious about it. What if they're really mean about it? Then remember that you can make 200 shadow clones and they can't, and feel quietly superior. Naruto grinned. Even Sasuke's mouth twitched. One more thing. She looked at both of them. You are going to be on different teams. You'll have different teachers, different missions, different paths. But you live in this apartment, you eat at this table. When the world is hard and it will be, you come home. Both of you, always. Naruto nodded hard. Sasuke looked at the table's surface. Both of you, Mikoto repeated. Yeah. Sasuke said, barely audible. Okay, they ate dinner. Naruto talked about what jutsu he was going to show off at the academy, and Sasuke told him showing off was tactically stupid, and Naruto said tactics were for people who couldn't punch hard enough, and Sasuke said that was the second stupidest thing he'd ever heard. And they argued through the meal with the comfortable, rhythmic hostility of siblings. Mikoto washed the dishes. She looked out the kitchen window at the Hokage monument, 4 stone faces. The 4th looked back at her with carved, unseeing eyes. He's ready, she thought. He's not perfect and he's not finished, but he's ready. I kept my promise, Kushina. Minato. I gave him everything I had. She dried the last plate and put it away and turned off the kitchen light and went to bed. Tomorrow, the world would meet the Naruto she'd built. She almost felt sorry for it. Chapter 3. Academy days, Naruto woke up before his alarm. That alone would have shocked anyone who'd known him a year ago. The old Naruto, the orphanage Naruto, the bench sleeping, trash-eating, feral Naruto, had operated on a schedule dictated by hunger and survival. Sleep when you're safe. Wake when you're not. Everything in between was improvisation. This Naruto had an alarm clock, and a uniform, clean and pressed, hanging on the back of his door. And a bento box in the fridge that Mikoto had packed the night before, rice, grilled chicken, pickled vegetables, a small container of miso soup that sealed with a click. He'd watched her pack it, and something in his chest had ached in a way he still didn't have words for. He got dressed in the dark. Blue shirt, dark pants, sandals that actually fit. The Hittite would come later, after graduation, after he'd earned it. For now, he looked like every other academy student in Konoha, which was itself a kind of miracle, to look normal, to blend in. To be one of many instead of the one who didn't belong. He checked himself in the bathroom mirror. Same blonde hair. Same blue eyes. Same whisker marks on his cheeks, which Mikoto had explained were a physical manifestation of the Kyubai's influence on his prenatal development. He'd started thinking of them differently after that, not as marks of shame, but as proof of what he carried. What he contained. What he controlled. Sasuke was already in the kitchen. He was eating rice and reading a scroll, some taijutsu theory text Mikoto had assigned, and he didn't look up when Naruto walked in. This was standard. Sasuke's morning personality was approximately 1 degree warmer than permafrost. Naruto had learned to navigate it the way you navigate weather. You didn't fight it, you just dressed appropriately. Morning, Naruto said, grunt. Ready for today, page turn. I'm gonna make at least 3 friends on the first day. Watch. Sasuke looked up from his scroll. His dark eyes held a complicated expression that Naruto had come to recognize over the past 4 months. Irritation on the surface, something softer underneath that Sasuke would rather die than acknowledge. 3 friends isn't a goal. It's a liability. More people who can be used against you. That's the most depressing thing you've said this week, and you said a lot of depressing stuff this week. Tactical awareness isn't depressing. It is when you're 8. Mikoto appeared in the hallway, already dressed, her hair pulled back. She moved easily now. The wound had healed to a scar, the physical therapy completed, her body rebuilt through the disciplined routine of a woman who refused to stay broken. She wasn't at full strength. Maybe 70%. But 70% of Mikoto Uchiha was still enough to make most jounin nervous. Eat, she said to Naruto, setting a plate in front of him. Walk, don't run. When you get to the academy, find your classroom, sit down, and don't cause an incident before lunch. Define incident. Naruto. Fine, fine. No incidents before lunch. After lunch is fair game though, right? She gave him a look that communicated approximately 14 different things, all of them some variation of I love you, but I will end you. He grinned and ate his breakfast. They left the apartment together, all 3 of them, walking through the morning streets of Konoha as the village woke up around them. Shop owners pulling up their shutters, genin teams heading to training grounds. Civilians moving through their routines with the comfortable predictability of people who'd never had to sleep on benches. Some of them stared. Not all, not most, but enough. Naruto felt the weight of their eyes like he always did. The whispers, the turned heads, the parents pulling their children a little closer as he passed. A year ago, it would have gutted him. Now it just registered as data. These people don't know me. They will. Mikoto walked between the boys like a wall. Not physically imposing, she was average height, slender, with the quiet bearing of someone who'd spent decades suppressing her own power to meet her clan's expectations. But she walked like she owned the street, like every step was a deliberate choice. And the people who stared at Naruto noticed her, and something in their expressions shifted. Not warmth, necessarily, but caution. The Uchiha Massacre was still raw in Konoha's memory, and Mikoto was its living reminder. A woman who'd been cut open by her own son and survived, who carried the weight of an extinct clan with a spine that refused to bend. You didn't stare too long at a woman like that. You certainly didn't stare at her children. They reached the academy. It was a large, flat-roofed building near the center of the village, surrounded by training yards and practice fields. Students were streaming through the front gate in clusters. Children of civilians, children of shinobi clans, children of nobody in particular, all funneled into the same system that would sort them into soldiers. Mikoto stopped at the gate. She adjusted Naruto's collar, checked Sasuke's pack, looked at them both with an expression that she kept carefully neutral, but that leaked at the edges. "Learn everything you can," she said. "I'll be here at 3. "We can walk home by ourselves," Sasuke said. "I'll be here at 3. Naruto hugged her. Quick, impulsive, the way he did everything. Just threw his arms around her waist and squeezed and let go before she could fully react. Then he turned and walked through the gate with his hands in his pockets, and his chin up and his heartbeat doing something ridiculous in his chest. Sasuke followed. They didn't walk side by side. Sasuke kept a careful 3 feet of distance, but they walked in the same direction at the same pace, which was its own kind of statement. The classroom was on the 2nd floor. Room 201. Naruto slid the door open and looked at his new world. 28 desks arranged in tiered rows. A chalkboard at the front. A window wall on the left that let in the morning sun. And students, already filling seats, already forming the clusters and alliances and hierarchies that would define their social landscape for the next 4 years. Naruto scanned the room, not randomly the way Mikoto had taught him. Exits first. 2, the door he'd entered through and the window wall, which opened onto a 20-foot drop to the yard below. Accessible in emergency. Threats next, none visible, just kids. But he noted the larger ones, the ones who carried themselves with confidence, the ones who watched the room the way he was watching it. Then the individuals. A boy in the back row with his head on the desk, apparently asleep. Dark hair in a ponytail, slouched posture, the boneless relaxation of someone who couldn't be bothered to sit up straight. A Nara, Naruto could tell by the deer patch on his sleeve and the weaponized laziness. A round boy next to him, eating chips from a bag with steady, contented rhythm. Akimichi. The 2 of them sat together like a matched set, a girl in the front row with platinum blonde hair and sharp blue eyes, talking rapidly to the pink-haired girl beside her. Yamanaka, probably. The pink-haired girl was listening with the desperate attentiveness of someone trying very hard to belong. A boy in sunglasses sitting alone near the window. High collar, still as a stone. A burame, a girl 2 rows back who was staring at her desk like it contained the answers to every question she'd ever been afraid to ask. Dark hair, pale eyes, Hyuga. She looked like she was trying to make herself invisible. And scattered among them, a dozen other faces that Naruto didn't recognize. Civilian kids, mostly, without the clan markers or the trained posture. He picked a seat in the middle of the room, not the front, not the back. A position with sightlines to both exits and clear view of the board. Mikoto would have approved. Sasuke walked past him without acknowledgement and took a seat by the window, as far from the social center of the room as possible. Within 30 seconds, 3 girls had repositioned themselves to be closer to him. He ignored them with the practiced indifference of someone who'd had practice at this. The door opened again, and the sleeping boy in the back row raised his head an inch. A wild-looking kid with red triangle marks on his cheeks burst in, a small white puppy riding on his head. Inuzuka. The puppy barked once, sharp and bright, and the boy grinned and took a seat near the back with the confidence of someone who'd never been uncertain about anything in his life. Naruto turned back to the front as the teacher walked in. Uruka Umino was young, mid-20s, brown hair in a ponytail, a scar across the bridge of his nose that spoke to at least one mission gone sideways. He carried a stack of papers and a look of determined patience that suggested he'd been doing this long enough to know what he was in for, but not so long that he'd stopped caring. "Good morning," Uruka said. "Welcome to the Konoha Ninja Academy. My name is Uruka Umeno. I'll be your primary instructor for the next 4 years. By the time we're done, you'll be prepared for service as genin of the Hidden Leaf. Some of you will go further. All of you will work harder than you expect." He set his papers down and looked at the room. His eyes moved across the students with the systematic assessment of a trained Chunin, reading the room, cataloging the faces, matching names to files he'd already studied. His gaze passed over Naruto and paused for a fraction of a second. Not long, not obvious, but Naruto caught it. He'd spent 7 years learning to read that pause, the microflicker of recognition, the involuntary tension, the moment when someone's brain connected that boy with the fox and decided how to feel about it. Uruka moved on. His expression didn't change. But the pause had happened, and Naruto filed it away. "We'll start with introductions," Uruka said. "Stand up, give your name, and tell us one thing about yourself. Front row first." The introductions rolled through the room. Some kids were shy, some were loud. "The Yamanaka girl, Ino," she announced, with the confidence of someone running for office, declared that she intended to be the strongest kunoichi in her generation. The Akimichi boy, Choji, said he liked barbecue. The Nara, Shikamaru, stood up, said, "Shikamaru Nara, I like clouds," and sat back down before Uruka could ask for elaboration. The Inuzuka, Kiba, introduced himself and his dog, Akamaru, as a package deal and dared anyone to separate them. The Aburame, Shino, spoke so quietly that half the class couldn't hear him and didn't seem to care. The Hyuga girl, Hinata, stood up and turned red and whispered her name and sat back down so fast that Naruto thought she might have used a substitution jutsu. Sasuke stood when his row came. Sasuke Uchiha. No additional information. He sat down. The girls around him swooned. The boys around him bristled. Uruka's expression flickered with something that might have been sympathy. Then it was Naruto's turn. He stood up. The room's attention shifted to him, and he felt it, the weight of 27 pairs of eyes, some curious, some hostile, some blank. In the back of the room, Shikamaru's head came up from his desk for the first time. "Naruto Uzumaki," he said. "I'm going to be Hokage." He said it clearly, without hesitation, without the desperate volume he would have used a year ago. Not a shout, a statement. The way you'd tell someone the sky was blue, simple, factual, not requiring agreement. The room was quiet for a beat. Then someone snorted, one of the civilian kids, a boy in the third row with an unimpressive face and the smug certainty of someone who'd heard the village's version of Naruto's story. "Yeah, right," the boy muttered. Naruto looked at him, just looked, not angry, not wounded. Just clear and steady and absolutely certain. The boy's smirk faltered. Naruto sat down behind him. He heard Shikamaru mutter to Choji, "That one's interesting." The first week established the pattern. Academics in the morning. History, theory, basic chakra science. Practical training in the afternoon. Taijutsu, weapons, conditioning. Uruka taught the core subjects. Assistant instructors handled the physical training. The curriculum was standardized, methodical, and, to Naruto, almost insultingly basic. He didn't say that. Mikoto had drilled it into him. Don't show everything you can do. Let them underestimate you. A shinobi's greatest weapon is being unknown. So he performed at the level expected of a first-year student. He answered questions correctly but not brilliantly. He hit targets accurately but not perfectly. He ran fast but not fastest. It drove him slightly insane. "I feel like a racehorse pretending to be a donkey," he told Mikoto that evening, lying upside down on the couch with his legs over the back. Racehorses who show their speed in the warm-up get studied by their competitors. Save it for the race. There's no race yet. There will be. Sasuke, predictably, was the top of the class in everything. He didn't hide his abilities, he didn't need to. The Uchiha name already painted a target on him, so the strategic advantage of anonymity was lost. Instead, he weaponized excellence, performing every task with a cold precision that kept the other students at arm's length. "I am better than you and I don't care if you know it." It was a defense mechanism dressed as arrogance, and Naruto recognized it because he'd built similar walls from different materials. The social dynamics sorted themselves within the first month. Sasuke accrued a following of girls and a retinue of jealous boys. Kiba established himself as the loudest presence in any room. Shino existed in a bubble of quiet competence that nobody penetrated. Ino and the pink-haired girl, Sakura Haruno, orbited Sasuke like competing moons. Choji ate. Shikamaru slept, and Naruto made friends, not the way he'd expected. Not through volume or spectacle or the desperate, look-at-me energy of his old life. It happened at lunch, on the third day, when he sat down on the grass behind the academy and unwrapped his bento and Shikamaru dropped down beside him without invitation. "Your bento's nice," Shikamaru said, eyeing the neatly arranged compartments. "Someone who cares about you made that." "Yeah." "Huh." Shikamaru lay back on the grass and stared at the sky. "You're different from what I expected." "What you expect? Based on what people say? A loud idiot, based on what I've observed." He closed one eye against the sun. "Someone pretending to be average who isn't. Your taijutsu has too much structure for self-taught. You've been trained." Naruto looked at him sideways. "Shikamaru Nara." IQ over 200, according to the clan assessments Mikoto had mentioned. The most dangerous kind of intelligence, the kind that looked lazy. "Aren't you supposed to be asleep right now?" Naruto said. "Sleeping is my cover. Observing is my hobby. Don't tell anyone, it would ruin my reputation." He yawned. "Who trained you?" Naruto considered lying. Mikoto had told him to be discreet about their training. But Shikamaru had already noticed, and lying to someone who'd already figured out the truth was worse than useless. It just cost you their respect. "My guardian." "Mikoto Uchiha?" Shikamaru's other eye opened. Both eyes on the sky, both eyebrows raised. "Sasuke's mom is your guardian." "Yeah, and she's training you." "Yeah." "Huh." A long, contemplative silence. "That explains the taijutsu, doesn't explain why you're pretending to be worse than you are. Maybe I'm just that bad. Maybe. Or maybe you're smart enough to know that showing your hand on the first day is a terrible strategy." He sat up. "Want to play shogi? I brought a board." "I don't know how to play shogi." "Great, I'll teach you. It'll be refreshing to beat someone who doesn't even know they're losing." They played shogi every lunch period for the rest of the week. Naruto lost every game badly, but he learned fast, not the mechanics, which were complex, but the thinking. The pattern of anticipating responses. The discipline of seeing 3 moves ahead instead of 1. It was chakra control for the mind, and it connected to everything Mikoto had been teaching him about tactical awareness. Choji joined them on the 4th day, bringing enough food to share with everyone and the easygoing warmth of someone who'd never needed to perform for acceptance. By the end of the 2nd week, their lunch spot behind the academy had become a regular gathering point. Kiba showed up because Kiba showed up everywhere. Shino appeared one day without announcement or explanation, sat at the edge of the group, and contributed exactly one comment. "Your shogi opening is structurally unsound, Naruto," before lapsing into permanent silence. Hinata didn't join them. She watched from a distance, Naruto noticed, because Mikoto had taught him to notice everything, but she never came closer. She'd look at him and then look away, and her pale Hyuga eyes would go wide and her face would flush, and Naruto had absolutely no idea what to do with any of that information. "She likes you," Shikamaru said flatly, moving a shogi piece. "What? No, she doesn't. She can barely look at me." "That's how you know." He captured Naruto's night. "Troublesome." The first real test came 6 weeks in. Uruka announced a class sparring tournament, round robin, no jutsu, taijutsu only, standard academy fare. The results would factor into their quarterly rankings. The bracket went up on the board. Naruto scanned it. His first match was against a civilian student, easy. His second, if he won, would be against Kiba. His potential path to the finals ran through Sasuke. He looked across the room. Sasuke was looking at the bracket too. Their eyes met. Something electric passed between them, not hostility, not exactly. Competition. The promise of a fight that mattered. Naruto's first match lasted 12 seconds. He'd held back, used only the basic academy stances, kept his movements clean and simple, and still ended it in 12 seconds because the civilian student had the combat instincts of a confused rabbit. The boy swung wide, Naruto sidestepped, redirected the momentum, and put him on the ground with a textbook hip throw. The class was quiet for a moment. Uruka marked his clipboard. Kiba was next. Kiba fought the way he did everything, loud, aggressive, full contact. He came in fast, low, using the Inuzuka clan's four-legged style, and he was strong. Stronger than Naruto expected. The first exchange was messy. Kiba's speed caught Naruto off guard, and a claw-handed strike raked across his forearm hard enough to draw blood. Naruto adjusted. He could feel Mikoto's training in his body like a second skeleton, the stances, the footwork, the instinct to move off the center line instead of meeting force with force. Kiba was fast but linear. He attacked in straight lines with devastating force, and when the straight line missed, he needed a beat to reset. Naruto found the pattern in the third exchange. Kiba lunged. Naruto pivoted, let the strike sail past, and snapped a kick into Kiba's exposed side that folded the boy sideways. Before Kiba could recover, Naruto was behind him, arm across the throat, controlled, and Iruka called the match. Kiba lay on the ground, staring at the sky, breathing hard. The hell was that? A kick. I know it was a kick. When did you learn to fight like that? Naruto offered his hand. Kiba took it and Naruto hauled him up, and they looked at each other with the raw, honest assessment of two boys who just tested each other physically. Good fight, Kiba said grudgingly. You're really fast. Yeah, well, next time, Kiba walked off, rubbing his side. Akamaru licked his face consolingly. From the watching crowd, Naruto caught Iruka's expression: surprise. Real surprise. The kind that came from a teacher reassessing a student in real time. Naruto met his eyes and then looked away. The bracket narrowed. Sasuke moved through his side with mechanical efficiency. One match ended in 8 seconds, another in 15. Each opponent dismantled with the precise, clinical taijutsu of a boy trained since birth. The class watched him with awe. Naruto watched him with something more analytical. He knew Sasuke's style. He'd seen it in their apartment, in the training grounds, in the small private sessions where Sasuke practiced alone and thought nobody was watching. He knew the patterns. Sasuke knew his too. The semifinal was Naruto against Shino. The Aburame boy fought defensively, long-range, evasive, using his reach advantage to keep Naruto at distance. It was smart. It was patient. It was the exact opposite of what Naruto wanted, which was to get inside and end it fast. Naruto feinted left. Shino didn't bite. He feinted right. Shino adjusted. The boy read attacks the way his insects read chakra signatures, passively, precisely, without emotion. So Naruto changed the game. He rushed in, ate a palm strike to the chest that hurt more than he'd expected, and used the impact to close the distance. Inside Shino's guard, his reach advantage became a liability. Naruto trapped Shino's extended arm, swept his front leg, and took him down in a controlled grapple. Match, Iruka called. Shino stood up, adjusted his sunglasses. You sacrificed a favorable position to force a close-range engagement. The palm strike to your chest could have cracked a rib, but it didn't. Risk assessment is not your strength. Behind the sunglasses, something that might have been respect. Well fought. Thanks, Shino. Sasuke's semifinal against Ino lasted 4 seconds. She didn't land a single strike. Naruto wasn't sure she'd intended to. She'd spent most of the fight staring at Sasuke's face with an expression that was less combat and more something else entirely. Mikoto would have had words about that. Several words. The final. Naruto versus Sasuke. The class formed a ring around the sparring area. Iruka stood at the edge, clipboard ready, his expression carefully neutral but his body language suggesting he understood this was different. The air had changed. Even Shikamaru was sitting up. Naruto took his position. Sasuke took his. They faced each other across 10 feet of packed earth. And for a moment, the classroom and the other students and the academy and the whole village fell away. And it was just the two of them. 2 boys who ate dinner at the same table and argued about whose turn it was to wash the dishes and shared a home built from the wreckage of the worst night either of them had ever lived through. Don't hold back, Sasuke said. Same. I wasn't planning to. Iruka's hand dropped. Begin. Neither of them moved for a full second. In taijutsu, the first move was information. It told your opponent your style, your speed, your preferred range. Both of them knew this. Both of them waited. Sasuke broke first. He closed the distance in 2 steps. Fast, faster than anyone else in the class. A burst of speed driven by months of obsessive training and the natural physical talent of the Uchiha bloodline. His opening was a textbook interceptor fist strike, aimed at Naruto's center line, designed to end the fight before it started. Naruto wasn't there. He'd read the attack in the shift of Sasuke's weight, a tell so subtle that only someone who'd watched Sasuke train every day for months would have caught it, and moved right, letting the fist cut air where his chest had been. His counter was a hooking kick to Sasuke's ribs. Sasuke blocked it with his forearm, hard, precise, the bone-on-bone impact jarring them both. They separated, circled. The class was dead silent. Sasuke came again. Combination this time: jab, cross, low kick, spinning elbow. Beautiful technique. Each strike flowed into the next with the fluid precision that made the Uchiha style legendary. Naruto blocked 2, dodged 1, and took the spinning elbow on his shoulder because the alternative was worse. Pain blazed down his arm. He grabbed Sasuke's extended elbow, pulled, and drove a knee toward Sasuke's midsection. Sasuke twisted, used Naruto's grip as a pivot point, and swung his free hand in an arc that caught Naruto across the jaw. Stars. Bright and sharp. Naruto staggered. Sasuke pressed the advantage, another combination, ruthlessly efficient, exploiting the half-second of disorientation. A kick connected with Naruto's thigh. A palm strike hammered his chest. Naruto gave ground. 2 steps. 3. The edge of the ring was close. He could feel the fox. Not deliberately, it was always there now, that deep, hot, ancient presence at the bottom of his chakra reserves. When he was hurt, when he was pushed, it stirred, offered. Use me. The temptation was a warm hand on his spine. He pushed it down. This wasn't a life-or-death fight. This was a sparring match. This was taijutsu. This was him and Sasuke, and he wanted to win with his own strength or not at all. He set his feet. Sasuke was coming again. He could see it in the boy's posture, the coiling of weight into the back leg that preceded a lunging attack. Sasuke was committing, going for the finish. Naruto waited, watched, breathed. Sasuke lunged, maximum speed. A straight punch aimed at the solar plexus, the kind of hit that ended fights. Naruto dropped his weight. The punch sailed over his head, close enough to ruffle his hair. He came up inside Sasuke's guard, fully inside, chest to chest, closer than Sasuke's style was designed to handle, and hit him. Not a technique. Not a named form. Just a short, brutal uppercut to the chin that carried every ounce of weight Naruto could put behind it, driven upward from the legs, through the hips, through the shoulder, through the fist. The kind of punch that couldn't be taught. The kind that came from a body that had learned, long before any formal training, that when your back is against the wall, you hit hard. Sasuke's head snapped back. His feet left the ground. He hung in the air for a frozen instant, dark eyes wide, surprise breaking through the carefully maintained composure like sunlight through a crack. And then he landed on his back in the dirt and didn't get up immediately. The class erupted. Not cheers, exactly. More like a collective gasp that broke into a dozen different reactions. Shock from the Sasuke fans, excitement from the boys who'd been waiting for someone to challenge the Uchiha's dominance, calculation from the smarter students who were revising their assumptions in real time. Naruto stood over Sasuke, breathing hard, his jaw throbbing where Sasuke had hit him, his shoulder aching, his thigh cramping from the kick. He offered his hand. Sasuke looked at the hand. His expression was unreadable. Then he took it, and Naruto pulled him up, and they stood there for a moment, grip to grip, both of them bruised and sweating and full of something that wasn't quite rivalry and wasn't quite friendship and wasn't quite anything that fit a simple word. "Lucky shot," Sasuke said. "Worked, though." The corner of Sasuke's mouth did something microscopic. Not a smile, the ghost of one, the fossil record. "Next time," Sasuke said. "Next time." Iruka called the tournament. Naruto first place. Sasuke second. The class buzzed. Several assumptions about the dead last, and the class genius had just been violently rearranged. and the social landscape of room 201 would never quite be the same. After school, Naruto found Uruka waiting at the gate. Not obviously waiting, the teacher was leaning against the wall, reviewing papers, looking like someone who just happened to be there. But Naruto had been trained to read intention, and Uruka's posture was too casual to be casual. "Naruto," Uruka said, "good performance today." "Thanks, Uruka-sensei. Can I ask who's been training you?" The question was carefully worded, professional curiosity wrapped in conversational tone. Naruto studied Uruka's face, the scar, the earnest brown eyes, the way his jaw was set slightly tight, which suggested this conversation mattered to him more than he was showing. "My guardian," Naruto said. "Mikoto Uchiha?" Uruka nodded slowly. Something complicated moved through his expression. Naruto waited for the other thing, the flicker, the pause, the that boy, the fox recalculation, but Uruka just nodded again and said, "She's done good work. You've got strong fundamentals. She's a good teacher." "I can tell." Uruka straightened up, tucked his papers under his arm. "Listen, Naruto, I want you to know." He stopped, started again. "When I saw your name on the class roster, I had expectations. Based on things I'd heard, I want to apologize for that." Naruto blinked. In his 8 years of life, exactly 0 adults had ever apologized to him for their expectations. "I judged you before I met you," Uruka said. "That's not the kind of teacher I want to be, so clean slate. From here on, you're just another student, one with a good uppercut." He smiled. It was a real smile, slightly crooked, a little embarrassed, entirely genuine. Naruto felt something slot into place behind his ribs, in the growing collection of moments that were slowly rewriting his understanding of what adults could be. "Thanks, Uruka-sensei," he said. "Clean slate." Mikoto was waiting at the gate as promised. Sasuke was already with her, looking aggressively indifferent. As Naruto approached, he caught the tail end of a conversation. "Punched me in the face," Sasuke was saying. "And what did you learn from that?" Mikoto asked. "That he punches hard. And that I need to guard my chin better on a committed lunge. There you go." Naruto fell into step beside them. They walked home through the afternoon streets, 3 figures casting long shadows in the low sun, and Mikoto put her hand briefly on Naruto's shoulder and squeezed once. "I heard about the tournament," she said. "Word travels fast." "Konoha is a village of gossips who happen to know lethal jutsu," she squeezed again. "I'm proud of you, both of you." Sasuke said nothing. But he walked a little closer to them on the way home, and the 3-foot distance he usually maintained shrank to 2. The months that followed were the closest thing to normal Naruto had ever experienced. Academy classes settled into rhythm. Naruto maintained his middle-of-the-pack cover for academic work, while excelling just enough in practicals to avoid suspicion. It was a constant calibration. Show enough skill to earn respect, not so much that teachers started asking uncomfortable questions or Danzo's watchers started filing reports. Because there were watchers. Naruto had spotted them by the end of the first month, 2 rotating observers, always in civilian clothes, always at the periphery. One frequented the tea shop across from the academy. The other posed as a maintenance worker in the building next door. Both of them watched Naruto with the flat, cataloging attention of trained intelligence operatives. He told Mikoto. She told him she'd already spotted them. She told him to ignore them. Then she went out one evening and came back 2 hours later with a look on her face that suggested someone had received a very clear message. And the watchers changed to more distant positions after that. At home, training intensified. Shadow clones, hundreds of them, cycling through exercises in the field behind their building. Chakra control was improving, slowly, painfully, but improving. Naruto could hold a leaf on his forehead for 4 minutes. He could water walk without falling for extended periods. He could tree walk up the tallest oak in the training ground. 5 minutes on the leaf was the milestone, the gateway to fire release. He wanted it badly enough that he dreamed about leaves. "You're grinding," Mikoto told him. "Forcing it. Chakra control isn't about willpower, it's about release." You're trying to strangle the energy into submission. You need to guide it. Guiding feels like doing nothing. Doing nothing is the hardest thing a person with power can learn. He thought about that for 3 days. On the 4th day, he sat on the grass with a leaf on his forehead and stopped trying. He stopped pushing. He stopped fighting his own energy and just let it be there, like a river. You didn't force a river. You shaped the banks and let the water decide. The leaf stuck. 1 minute, 2, 3, 4, 5, he opened his eyes. The leaf was still there, trembling slightly, held by a film of perfectly regulated chakra. Mikoto-san, I see it. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Does this mean tomorrow? Fire release basics, tomorrow. He kept the leaf on his forehead for the rest of the day. Wore it to dinner. Wore it while washing dishes. Sasuke told him he looked ridiculous. Naruto didn't care. Tomorrow. Fire. The academy's graduation exam came faster than anyone expected. Or rather, it came on schedule, and the 4 years between enrollment and graduation compressed in Naruto's memory into a montage of growth and change and small, daily miracles. He was 12 now. Taller, broader in the shoulders. His face had lost the malnourished sharpness of his childhood and filled out into something that looked startlingly like his father's photographs. His blonde hair was longer, wilder, and the whisker marks on his cheeks had become less a mark of shame and more a distinguishing feature, part of his face, part of his identity, part of who he was. His skills had transformed. 4 years of shadow clone training, compounded exponentially, had given him a depth of experience that no single student could match. His taijutsu was fluid and adaptive. Not one style, but a synthesis of everything Mikoto had taught him, shaped by thousands of hours of sparring with his own clones and with Sasuke. His chakra control, while never his strongest area, had reached a level of functional competence that let him perform mid-level techniques reliably. His wind release was sharp enough to cut stone. His fire release, learned from Mikoto, practiced obsessively, was unconventional but effective. He understood strategy. He could plan. He could read a battlefield, and underneath all of it, barely contained, barely touched, the ocean of the fox's power waited. Mikoto had taught him to sense it, to acknowledge it, to build a relationship with it that wasn't fear and wasn't worship. She hadn't taught him to use it. Not yet. That was a door she'd decided would open later, when his foundation was strong enough to bear the weight. Sasuke had grown too. Taller than Naruto, by an inch leaner, with the angular features of the Uchiha bloodline sharpening into something that made the girls in their class lose the ability to form sentences. His skills were extraordinary by any measure, top of the class in everything, sharing in not yet awakened but combat ability already at the level of a competent genin. He and Naruto sparred regularly now. Their record was roughly even, with Sasuke winning on technical precision and Naruto winning on adaptability and sheer refusal to stay down. They were rivals. They were brothers. They were both simultaneously, and neither of them would ever have admitted to the second one out loud. The morning of the graduation exam, Mikoto made breakfast. Full spread, rice, fish, soup, vegetables, tamagoyaki, and a pot of tea that smelled like every good morning she'd ever given them compressed into a single cup. The exam has 3 components, she said, sitting across from them. Written test, practical demonstration, jutsu performance. The jutsu requirement is the basic clone technique. Naruto's chopsticks stopped moving. The bunshin. The one jutsu he still couldn't perform. His chakra was too dense, too powerful. The basic illusory clone came out looking like a deflated balloon no matter how much control he applied. It was the one gap in his arsenal that 4 years of training hadn't closed because it wasn't a gap of skill. It was a fundamental incompatibility between the technique's design and his chakra nature. I can't do it, he said. Not with defeat, with frustration. The frustration of someone who'd mastered dozens of harder techniques, but was being gated by one simple one that his body refused to cooperate with. I know, Mikoto said. Talk to Iruka. About what? About the substitution clause. Academy rules allow an equivalent technique to be demonstrated if a student can prove proficiency at an equal or higher level. The shadow clone technique is a Jounin-level variant of the basic clone. If Uruka accepts it as a substitution, will he? He will if you ask him honestly. Uruka respects honesty. Go before the exam, explain the situation, show him what you can do. Naruto went. He found Uruka in the empty classroom, setting up the exam materials. The teacher looked up when Naruto knocked on the doorframe. "Naruto, you're early. I need to talk to you about the clone technique." Uruka set down his papers. "The Bunshin." "I can't do it. My chakra's too dense." "I've tried everything, fine control, minimal output, every workaround Mikoto-san could think of. The basic clone just doesn't work for me." Uruka studied him. 4 years of teaching Naruto had stripped away whatever preconceptions he'd started with. He'd watched this student grow from a guarded, calibrated newcomer into someone genuine and capable, and unlike anyone else in the class. He'd also, quietly, gradually, become the closest thing Naruto had to a male role model, a fact that neither of them discussed, because discussing it would make it weird. "Show me what you can do instead," Uruka said. Naruto formed the cross seal. 2 shadow clones appeared, perfect, solid, indistinguishable from the original. They waved at Uruka, grinning identically. Uruka stared. He walked to one of the clones, poked it. It poked him back. He looked at Naruto, back at the clone, back at Naruto. "This is the Cage Bunshin." "Yeah." "That's a Jounin-level forbidden technique." "Yeah, you're 12, I'm aware." Uruka was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat down heavily at his desk and rubbed the bridge of his nose right along the scar. "How many can you make? How many do you want, Naruto?" "I dunno, a lot, hundreds." The nose rubbing intensified. Uruka sighed. Under the Academy's substitution clause, a student who cannot perform a required technique may demonstrate an equivalent or superior alternative. The Cage Bunshin is significantly superior to the standard clone. He looked up. "I'll accept it. But I'm noting it in your file, which means the Hokkage's office will see it, which means questions will be asked." "I can handle questions." Uruka smiled, the slightly crooked, genuine one. "Yeah, I know you can." The exam went smoothly after that. Naruto aced the written test. 4 years of Mikoto's relentless academic drilling had turned him into a competent student who could parse questions and write structured answers, even if his handwriting was still atrocious. The practical demonstration was a formality. And when the jutsu portion came, he stood at the front of the classroom and made 2 shadow clones that were so solid one of them accidentally bumped into the examiner's desk. Uruka handed him a Hidaite. Naruto held it. The metal was cool against his fingers. The leaf symbol was etched into the plate, and the cloth was blue, standard issue, nothing special, mass-produced in some factory somewhere and handed out to every graduate. It was the most important object he'd ever held. He tied it around his forehead. Tight. Final. The metal sat against his skin, and the cloth pressed down his hair, and he could feel the weight of it, not just physical, but the weight of what it meant. He was a shinobi of Konohagakure. He belonged here. Not because someone had grudgingly allowed him to stay, but because he'd earned his place. He walked out of the academy, and Mikoto was there, waiting, the way she'd been there every day for 4 years. Sasuke was beside her, Hidaite already in place, looking like he'd been a ninja his entire life. Mikoto looked at Naruto, at the headband. At the boy who'd dragged her out of hell and grown into someone who could carry the weight of the world on his shoulders if he had to. She didn't say anything. She just opened her arms. He walked into the hug. 12 years old, almost as tall as her now, a shinobi of the leaf, and he pressed his face into her shoulder and held on. She held him back. Tight. The way she'd held his hand in the hospital room 5 years ago when she'd said "you're mine now" and meant it with every cell in her body. Sasuke watched them. His expression was the complicated one, the one with too many layers to name. Then Mikoto extended one arm toward him, and he hesitated, and she waited, and he stepped into the hug like someone stepping off a cliff. The 3 of them stood outside the academy in the afternoon sun, holding each other, and the village moved around them, and the Hokage mountain watched, and the world, for one suspended moment, was exactly as it should be. The team assignments were posted the next day. Naruto arrived early, a habit he'd never managed to break despite his best efforts, and found the classroom buzzing. Students crowded around the assignment board, reading names, reacting with excitement or dismay. The Jounin Sensei assignments were listed alongside the teams, and the combinations ranged from predictable to bewildering. Team 7, Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Jounin Sensei, Kakashi Hatake, Naruto read it twice, then a third time. Then he looked across the room at Sasuke, who had clearly already read it, and was sitting at his desk with the specific kind of tension that meant he was processing something difficult. They were on the same team. The two boys who lived in the same apartment, trained with the same woman, ate at the same table, fought like brothers and fought as brothers, had been placed on a 3-man cell together. And their sensei was Kakashi Hatake. The man who'd appeared at their training ground 5 years ago called himself a stray cat and offered help that Mikoto had cautiously accepted. The man who'd been Minato Namikaze's student. The man who should have been in Naruto's life from the beginning and hadn't been, and carried the guilt of that failure like a stone in his pocket. Naruto looked at the assignment and felt the shape of something deliberate. This wasn't random. The Hokage had made this team on purpose. Sakura Haruno arrived and saw the listing, and her face went through approximately 17 emotions in 2 seconds, most of them related to being on Sasuke's team, and none of them related to Naruto at all. Naruto wasn't offended. He'd spent 4 years watching Sakura orbit Sasuke with the single-minded intensity of a satellite, and he'd made peace with his own invisibility in that particular dynamic. Team 7, Sakura said, sliding into a desk near Sasuke with a smile that was 90% hope and 10% terror. This is going to be great. HN, Sasuke said, which was Sasuke for approximately 30 different things depending on context. Our sensei is Kakashi Hatake, Naruto said. He's supposed to be one of the strongest jounin in the village. I've heard of him. Sakura's academic brain engaged, overriding the Sasuke fixation for a moment. The copy ninja. He's copied over 1,000 jutsu with his Sharingan. Naruto and Sasuke exchanged a glance. Sharingan. A non-Uchiha with a Sharingan assigned to a team with the last Uchiha heir. Another piece of the Hokage's deliberate construction, they waited for Kakashi. Other teams were collected by their senseis. Team 8 left with a striking woman with red eyes. Kurenai Yuhai, Naruto noted, a Genjutsu specialist. Team 10 with a bearded man smoking a cigarette, Asuma Sarutobi, the Hokage's son. Team after team departed until room 201 was empty except for the 3 members of Team 7, sitting in a silent classroom, waiting. 30 minutes passed. An hour. 2 hours. He's late, Sakura said. He's always late, Naruto said. It's his thing. How do you know that? Reputation. The door opened 3 hours after the assigned meeting time, and Kakashi Hatake slouched in with his hands in his pockets, and his one visible eye conveying the absolute minimum amount of interest in the world around him. Yo, he said. You're Team 7, I'm Kakashi. My first impression of you is. He looked at them. Naruto looked back, meeting the single gray eye with a steadiness that made something shift in Kakashi's posture. You have potential. Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes. He vanished, body flicker. The 3 genin looked at each other. Rooftop, Naruto said, and they went. Kakashi was already there, leaning against the railing, the village spread out below them in the afternoon light. The Hokage monument was visible from here, 4 stone faces watching over the village, the 4th's likeness as familiar to Naruto now as his own reflection. Introductions. Kakashi said, Name, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dream for the future. I'll start. I'm Kakashi Hatake. I have no desire to tell you my likes and dislikes. My hobbies are none of your business. Dreams for the future? Haven't really thought about it. That was completely useless. Sakura muttered, Your turn, Pinky. Sakura went first, likes. Well, the person I like is, glance at Sasuke, blush, giggle, hobbies. I like to study and, glance at Sasuke, dream, glance at Sasuke, extended giggle, no actual words. Kakashi's expression suggested he was reconsidering his life choices. Next, broody. Sasuke's jaw tightened. Sasuke Uchiha, I don't have many likes, I dislike a lot of things. My dream, he paused. The word dream seemed to cost him something. There's someone I need to find. Things I need to understand, I won't call it a dream, it's an objective. The air on the rooftop changed. Naruto knew what Sasuke meant. Itachi. The brother who'd destroyed everything, but Sasuke's framing was different than it would have been without Mikoto, not kill but find. Not revenge but understand. Mikoto had spent 4 years carefully, painstakingly redirecting Sasuke's rage toward something less self-destructive. The rage was still there, but it had structure now, purpose instead of poison. And you, Blondie? Naruto looked at Kakashi. Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen, training, and the people who matter to me. I dislike people who judge others without knowing them. My dream is to be Hokage, not for the title, but because I want to protect this village, all of it, even the parts that don't want to be protected. Kakashi was quiet for a moment. His eye rested on Naruto with an expression that was harder to read than usual, layers of something, assessment and recognition and that ever-present guilt, all filtered through the mask and the slouch and the practiced indifference. Interesting, Kakashi said. Now, the bad news. You're not actually Genin yet. Sakura's mouth opened. What? The academy exam was a preliminary filter. The real test happens tomorrow morning, administered by me. Of all the graduates, only 9 will actually become Genin. The rest go back to the academy. He pushed off the railing. Tomorrow, training ground 7:05 a.m. Don't eat breakfast, you'll throw up. He body flickered away. Sakura looked panicked. Sasuke looked determined. Naruto looked at the space where Kakashi had been and smiled. He knew about the bell test. Mikoto had told him it was Kakashi's standard evaluation, the same one he'd failed every previous team on. 2 bells, 3 students, the apparent impossibility of all 3 passing, the real test underneath. Teamwork. Cooperation. The willingness to put the team above yourself. Tomorrow would be the first real test of what Mikoto had built. Not his skills, not his techniques, his character. His ability to put others first. His capacity to be the kind of shinobi, the kind of person that a Hokage needed to be. He walked home through the evening streets and found Mikoto in the kitchen, cooking dinner, and she looked at him and raised an eyebrow, and he said, "Bell test, tomorrow morning." "I know." She set a plate on the table. "Eat, then we talk strategy." He ate. They talked. And by the time Naruto went to bed that night, he had a plan. Not a plan to win the bells. A plan to make sure no one on his team failed, because that was what Mikoto had given him. Not just skills, not just techniques, not just the foundation of a shinobi. She'd given him the understanding that strength without connection was just violence. That power without purpose was just destruction. That the strongest thing a person could do wasn't to fight for themselves, it was to fight for someone else. He lay in his bed in his room in the apartment that smelled like home, and he thought about the woman who'd looked at a 7-year-old orphan covered in blood and said, "You're mine now." And he felt the fox stir in his belly, and the chakra hum in his veins, and the Hittite on his bedside table catch the moonlight. Tomorrow, the world would see what she'd made of him. He couldn't wait. Chapter 4. The Land of Waves. The bell test lasted 11 minutes. Kakashi had expected it to last longer. He'd expected the standard pattern, 3 genin fighting separately, failing separately, slowly realizing through frustration and defeat that they couldn't beat a jounin alone. That realization usually took an hour, sometimes 2. Most teams never reached it at all, which was why he'd failed every single team he'd ever been assigned. Team 7 broke the pattern before it started. They arrived at training ground 7 at 5 a.m., as instructed. Kakashi arrived at 8, as was his custom. He found them waiting, not impatiently, not frustrated. They were sitting in a loose triangle in the clearing, talking quietly, and when he appeared they stood up in unison with the coordinated ease of people who'd already agreed on a plan. Morning. Kakashi said, holding up 2 bells. Rules are simple. Take these from me before noon. 2 bells, 3 of you. Whoever doesn't get a bell goes back to the academy. Come at me with everything you have, or you won't stand a chance. He tied the bells to his belt loop. He pulled out his orange book. He waited for the fear, the hesitation, the fracturing. Understood, Naruto said. Sasuke, Sakura, ready. They moved, not separately, together. The 3 of them launched a coordinated assault that hit Kakashi from 3 angles simultaneously. And the first thing he noticed, the thing that made him close his book and pay actual attention, was that they weren't fighting like academy students. They were fighting like a squad. Sasuke came high. Taijutsu, fast, precise, the Uchiha interceptor style with modifications that spoke to creative adaptation. He engaged Kakashi's hands, forcing the Jounin to block and parry, occupying his attention. Sakura went low. Not an attack, a distraction. She threw a handful of shuriken at Kakashi's feet, not aimed to hit but to restrict his movement, to limit his escape angles. It was basic, but it was smart, and it told Kakashi that someone had coached her on tactical support roles. And Naruto was everywhere. 12 shadow clones appeared simultaneously, circling the clearing, cutting off retreat routes, creating a perimeter that turned the open field into a cage. Then 6 more appeared directly behind Kakashi, each one grabbing for the bells with reckless, joyful abandon. Kakashi substituted out. Standard escape. He reappeared on a tree branch 20 feet up and found 3 shadow clones already there, grinning at him. Hi, said one of them and grabbed for his belt. He kicked through it, clone, dispersed, puff of smoke and dropped to the ground, and Sasuke was waiting. A sweeping kick that Kakashi blocked, a follow-up combination that was genuinely impressive for a 12-year-old. And then Naruto, the real one, was behind him, hand darting for the bells with the quick, precise fingers of a boy who'd spent years picking pockets in a past life he didn't talk about. Kakashi twisted. Naruto's fingers brushed the bells. The sound they made, a tiny, bright jingle, was louder than it should have been. Almost. Kakashi said, genuinely surprised, and created distance with a body flicker. He landed in the middle of the clearing. Assessed. Recalibrated, they'd planned this. Not in the 5 minutes before the test, this level of coordination required discussion, strategy, role assignment. They'd planned it the night before, probably with Mikoto's input, and the plan was sound. Sasuke engaged, Sakura controlled space, Naruto overwhelmed with numbers and exploited openings. It was a textbook 3-man cell tactic executed at a level that had no business coming from fresh graduates. Okay, Kakashi said and put his book away. Let's take this seriously. He moved at Jounin speed. The next 3 minutes were a clinic. Kakashi dismantled their formation with surgical precision, dispersing clones with targeted strikes, separating Sasuke with a substitution that put a log between them, trapping Sakura in a basic genjutsu that she broke out of in 4 seconds. He noted that, filed it. Faster than expected. He used no jutsu above D rank. He didn't need to. The gap between a Jounin and 3 genin was enormous and no amount of planning could fully bridge it, but they adapted. That was the thing. When the first plan fell apart, they didn't panic. They reformed. Naruto's clones changed tactics. Instead of grabbing for bells, they started herding, driving Kakashi toward specific positions where Sasuke waited. Sakura abandoned direct engagement and started calling out Kakashi's position, acting as a spotter, her voice cutting through the chaos with clear, concise updates. Left side, tree line. Sasuke pivoted. Naruto's clones collapsed inward. Kakashi found himself in a shrinking box of opponents and had to use a genuine Earth-style jutsu, headhunter, pulling himself underground to escape. He emerged behind Sakura. She screamed, spun, threw a kunai that he caught between 2 fingers. He looked at her. Not bad, he said. Then Naruto's hand closed around the first bell. Kakashi looked down. A shadow clone, a single clone, hinged into a clump of grass, lying flat on the ground since before the test started, had reached up from below and unclipped the bell from his belt loop with the delicate touch of a pickpocket. The clone tossed the bell to the real Naruto, who caught it. "Since before I got here?" Kakashi asked. "Mikoto-san said you're always 3 hours late. Gave us time to set up." Kakashi stared at him, then he laughed. A real laugh, not the polite, deflecting chuckle he used socially, but a genuine sound that came from somewhere deep and surprised. "All right. 1 bell, but there are 2 and 3 of you." "About that," Naruto said and tossed the bell to Sakura. She caught it reflexively, eyes wide. "What, Naruto, this is yours? You took it? The test isn't about the bells." He looked at Kakashi, held the Jounin's gaze with 12-year-old certainty. "It's about teamwork, whether we'll sacrifice each other to pass. The answer is no. If one of us goes back to the academy, we all go back." Kakashi looked at Naruto, at Sasuke, who'd crossed his arms but hadn't objected, at Sakura, holding the bell like it was made of glass. "Sasuke," Kakashi said, "you agree with this?" "I agree that fighting you individually would be stupid. I agree that we worked better as a unit. I agree that sending one person back weakens the team." He paused. The next words cost him something visible. "And I agree that Naruto's right. We pass together or not at all." Kakashi's eye moved between them. 3 genin standing in a torn-up training ground, bruised and dirty and absolutely united, and something in the Jounin's posture changed. The slouch straightened. The manufactured disinterest fell away. For just a moment, Kakashi Headache looked like the man he might have been if grief hadn't hollowed him out. "You pass," he said. "All 3 of you." Sakura made a sound that was half gasp, half sob. Naruto grinned so wide it nearly split his face. Sasuke nodded once, sharp, and if his eyes were brighter than usual, nobody mentioned it. "Team 7, Kakashi said, starts missions tomorrow. Meet at the bridge at 9. He paused. "I'll be there at noon." "We know." All 3 of them said simultaneously, and Kakashi disappeared in a swirl of leaves, and Naruto could have sworn he heard the man laughing as he went. The first month of missions was D ranks, catching cats, pulling weeds, painting fences, delivering groceries to elderly civilians who were perfectly capable of carrying their own groceries, but enjoyed having young ninja do it for them. The tedium was suffocating, and Naruto bore it with a patience that surprised even himself, because Mikoto had told him. D ranks are a test of character, not skill. Anyone can fight. Not everyone can serve without complaining. He complained a little. He was still Naruto. But the D ranks served a purpose beyond income and endurance. They were Team 7's bonding period. Over dozens of small, mundane missions, the 3 genin and their perpetually late sensei built the subtle architecture of a functional team. The rhythms, the shorthand, the intuitive understanding of each other's strengths and weaknesses that no amount of classroom instruction could replicate. Sakura was smarter than either boy had given her credit for. Her chakra control was exceptional, the best on the team by a wide margin, and her analytical mind could process tactical information faster than Naruto or Sasuke. What she lacked was confidence. She'd spent years defining herself through her crush on Sasuke, and when the mission context stripped that dynamic away and demanded she contribute as a shinobi, she struggled. Not with the work, with believing she deserved to be there. Naruto noticed because Mikoto had taught him to notice people. He started small, asking Sakura's opinion on mission logistics, deferring to her memory for details he'd missed, publicly acknowledging when her ideas were better than his. It wasn't manipulation, it was investment. A strong Sakura made a stronger team, and a stronger team kept everyone alive. Sasuke noticed what Naruto was doing. He didn't comment on it, but he started doing it too in his own way, which mostly involved not dismissing Sakura's contributions and occasionally grunting in what could be interpreted as approval. For Sasuke, this was practically a standing ovation. Kakashi watched all of this with his one visible eye and said nothing and saw everything. He also watched Naruto. Specifically, he watched Naruto's skills, the ones the boy deployed on missions versus the ones he kept hidden. Kakashi had been a jounin for over a decade. He could read a shinobi's true level through the cracks in their performance, the way a geologist reads the age of rock through its layers. And what he read in Naruto was a 12-year-old operating at low Chunin level while pretending to be a fresh genin. He brought it up during their first private conversation, 3 weeks into the team's formation. They were at the Memorial Stone, Kakashi's habitual haunt, the place where he went to talk to the dead and occasionally to the living. "Your mother trained you well," Kakashi said. Naruto was sitting on the grass nearby, stretching after a solo training session. He looked up. "She's not my mother. Your guardian, then. She's my mother." He caught himself, smiled. Yeah, both. It's complicated." "I understand complicated." Kakashi's eye was on the stone, on the names carved there. Abido's name, Rin's name, Minato's name. "She taught you shadow clones, fire release, wind release, advanced taijutsu, tactical planning. She taught me everything. Not everything. Your fundamentals are Mikoto's, but your fighting style is your own. The adaptability, the improvisation, the willingness to take a hit to create an opening, she didn't teach you that. That's instinct." Naruto shrugged. "She taught me how to learn, the rest came from practicing." Kakashi turned from the stone. "I'm going to push your team harder. The D ranks are finished. I've requested a C rank mission." "What kind?" "Escort, a bridge builder to the land of waves, simple protection detail, low threat assessment." He paused. "In theory." "You don't trust the theory." "I don't trust anything that looks simple. Simple missions that go wrong kill more genin than S-rank ambushes." He studied Naruto. "When we're in the field, I need you to operate at your real level, not the academy cover, not the careful middle-of-the-pack routine. If something goes wrong, I need to know what you can actually do." Naruto met his eye. "If something goes wrong, you'll find out." "That's not reassuring." "Wasn't meant to be." Kakashi's eye curved. The mask shifted, something like a smile. They left for Wave Country on a Tuesday morning. The client was Tazuna, a bridge builder, mid-60s, with a straw hat and a sake flask and the nervous energy of a man who was lying about something. Naruto read it on him immediately. The way his eyes moved. The way he laughed too loud and complained too much and avoided direct questions about why, exactly, a bridge builder needed ninja protection for a simple walk home. Naruto said nothing. He filed it. He caught Sasuke's eye, and Sasuke's slight nod confirmed that he'd noticed too. They traveled light. Standard formation, Kakashi at the front, Naruto and Sasuke flanking the client, Sakura at the rear. The road from Konoha to the coast was well-traveled, lined with trees, dappled with the kind of pleasant afternoon sunlight that made everything feel safe. Naruto didn't feel safe. The feeling crawled up the back of his neck like a spider, the instinct Mikoto had trained into him, the awareness of wrongness that functioned below conscious thought. Something about the road, something about the silence, something about the puddle. The puddle. It hadn't rained in 2 weeks. The road was dry. The sun was out, and there was a puddle sitting in the middle of the road, perfectly still, catching no light. Naruto's hand moved to his kunai pouch. Across the formation, Sasuke's hand did the same. They didn't look at each other. They didn't need to. Kakashi walked past the puddle. The demon brothers erupted from it. 2 of them, Chunin level, chained together by a bladed shuriken chain, moving fast and vicious. They went for Kakashi first, wrapping him in the chain, and the jounin was shredded in an instant, torn apart in a spray of blood and no. Naruto's eyes cut through the genjutsu component instinctively. Substitution. A log, wrapped in chain, and Kakashi was somewhere else, watching, testing. The brothers pivoted, went for Tazuna. The chain whipped through the air with a sound like ripping silk. Naruto was already moving. He'd played this scenario in his head 100 times during Mikoto's tactical drills. Ambush on an escort mission. 2 hostiles. Priority, protect the client. The response was muscle memory. He threw 2 kunai, not at the brothers, at the chain. The kunai embedded in a tree trunk behind them, and the chain, stretched between them and the tree, went taut. The brothers yanked. The chain held for 1 second. Just one, the kunai wouldn't hold long, but 1 second was enough. Sasuke came in from the right. A spinning kick that caught the first brother in the ribs and separated him from the second's coordinated movement. The chain slackened as the distance closed, and Sasuke drove an elbow into the first brother's jaw that sent him reeling. The second brother broke free and lunged at Tezuna. Sakura was there, standing in front of the client with a kunai drawn and her hands shaking and her eyes absolutely terrified, but her feet planted. She wasn't going to move. She was going to stand there and shake and be terrified and not move. And in that moment, Naruto understood something about courage that no training could teach. He intercepted the second brother 2 steps from Sakura. A shadow clone appeared beside him, and together they overwhelmed the missing nin with a flurry of strikes that were faster and harder than any genin should have been capable of. The brother staggered. Naruto caught his arm, twisted, dislocated the elbow with a sharp crack that made Sakura flinch. The brother screamed and went down. Kakashi appeared. He'd been watching from the tree line the entire time. He subdued the first brother with casual, devastating efficiency, a single precise strike to the neck that dropped the man like a puppet with its strings cut. The fight was over. 12 seconds, maybe 15. Kakashi looked at his team, at Naruto, who was standing over the second brother with steady hands and a focused expression. At Sasuke, breathing hard but unhurt. At Sakura, still shaking, still holding her kunai, still standing exactly where she'd planted herself. "Good," he said, and then to Tezuna. "Now, want to tell us the truth about this mission?" Tezuna's flask was empty. He drained it during the fight. His hands were shaking worse than Sakura's, and his lies were visible in the sweat on his face and the way his eyes wouldn't settle. The truth came out in pieces. A shipping magnate named Gato, a stranglehold on the land of Wave's economy, a bridge that would break the monopoly. Assassins. The real threat level not C rank, B rank at minimum, possibly higher. "You lied on the mission request," Kakashi said, not angry, flat. "You couldn't afford a B rank escort, so you filed a C rank and hoped for the best. My country is dying." Tezuna's voice cracked. "Gato's bled us dry. The bridge is the only hope we have. If I don't finish it, Wave stays under his boot forever." He looked at the genin. At Naruto specifically, for some reason. I'm sorry I lied, but I didn't know what else to do." Kakashi looked at his team. "This is above our mission parameters. We can turn back. No one would blame you." "Speak for yourself," Naruto said. "I'm not leaving, Naruto." His country's dying and he couldn't afford help and he did the only thing he could think of. That's not a crime, that's desperation. He looked at Tezuna. "We'll protect you, we'll get you home, you'll finish your bridge. You can't unilaterally decide." "I'm in," Sasuke said. Kakashi looked at Sakura. She was still pale, still rattled from the fight, but she straightened her spine and lifted her chin and said, "Me too." Kakashi studied them for a long moment. 3 12-year-olds who just decided to walk into a situation that could get them killed, not because they were reckless, but because they believed it was right. He could overrule them. He was their commanding officer. The smart, safe, responsible thing to do was to turn back and report the mission discrepancy and let someone else handle it. He thought about Abido. About the teammate who'd taught him that those who abandon their friends are worse than trash. About the lesson he'd spent his whole life failing to live up to. "All right," he said. "We continue. But from here on, I'm in command. You follow my orders without question. Clear?" "Clear." They moved on. The road stretched ahead of them toward the coast, and the pleasant afternoon sunlight suddenly felt less warm. They crossed to Wave Country by boat, a small fishing vessel piloted by a nervous man who kept glancing over his shoulder at the fog like it might reach out and grab him. The mist was thick, heavy, the kind that swallowed sound and made the world feel two-dimensional. Naruto sat at the bow and watched the gray water pass beneath them and felt the fox stir in his belly. It did that sometimes, when danger was close. Not offering power exactly, more like waking up. Lifting its head, paying attention. Not yet, Naruto told it silently. Go back to sleep. The fox didn't go back to sleep, but it settled. They had an understanding, him and the thing in his gut. Not friendship, nothing so warm, more like the relationship between a man and a fire in his hearth. Respect the fire. Feed the fire. Don't let the fire out of the hearth. They docked. They walked. The land of waves was poor. Naruto could see it in the buildings, the roads, the faces of the people they passed. Not Konoha poor, which was relative. Actually poor, hungry, hopeless. Children with bare feet and hollow eyes watched them from doorways, and Naruto felt something tighten in his chest that had nothing to do with the fox. They were an hour from Tazuna's house when the fog thickened. Kakashi stopped walking. His hand went up, the Anbu signal for halt, danger, be ready. Naruto's body went electric. Beside him, Sasuke's hand moved to his kunai pouch. Sakura dropped into the defensive position Kakashi had taught her. The sword came out of the fog like a thrown guillotine. It was enormous, a cleaver-shaped blade as tall as a man, spinning in a flat horizontal arc that would have decapitated all four of them if Kakashi hadn't screamed down and tackled Tazuna to the ground. The genin dropped. The blade sailed over them and embedded itself in a tree with a thud that shook the earth. A man landed on the sword's handle. Crouched there, perfectly balanced, like standing on a horizontal blade in fog, was the most natural thing in the world. He was tall, bare-chested, his lower face wrapped in bandages. His arms were crossed and his eyes held the flat, professional disinterest of a man for whom killing was work. Kakashi of the Sharingan, the man said. I was hoping I'd get someone interesting. Zabuza Mamachi. Kakashi replied, and his voice had changed, not the lazy drawl, something harder, something that meant he was done pretending. Demon of the Hidden Mist, A rank missing nin. Naruto's blood went cold. A rank, not B, A rank. A man who'd slaughtered an entire graduating class of academy students as a child. A man who'd attempted a coup against the Mizukage. A man who made the demon brothers look like playground bullies. Manji formation, Kakashi said, reaching for his Hidayate. Protect Tazuna, don't engage. This one's mine. He pulled the headband up, revealing the Sharingan in his left eye. The red iris spun with 3 black Tamo, and Naruto felt Sasuke stiffen beside him at the sight of his clan's stolen legacy embedded in another man's skull. Zabuza pulled his sword from the tree. Let's see if you're as good as they say. They fought. Naruto had never seen Jounin-level combat before. Not truly. He'd seen Mikoto demonstrate techniques, seen Kakashi spar at reduced intensity, seen flashes of high-level skill in controlled environments. This was different. This was 2 killers trying to end each other in the fog, and the speed and violence of it was beyond anything the Academy had prepared him for. Zabuza was a monster. Fast despite his size, his sword cutting arcs through the mist that created pressure waves Naruto could feel from 30 feet away. His water release was devastating, water clones, water prison, waves of pressurized water that tore gouges in the earth. And the killing intent, an aura of murderous pressure that radiated from him like heat, thick enough to choke on, heavy enough to freeze you in place. Naruto felt it hit him and his vision tunneled and his hands locked, and for a terrible, stretched moment he was 7 years old again, standing in the Uchiha compound surrounded by bodies, smelling copper, feeling the world tilt. He breathed. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Mikoto's voice in his memory. Fear is information. It tells you the threat is real. Acknowledge it. Then move. He moved, back to position, guard up. Kunai ready. The killing intent was still there, but it wasn't paralyzing anymore. It was just weather. Bad weather. He'd lived through worse. Kakashi and Zabuza clashed on the lake. Water exploded upward. Jutsu collided. The Sharingan spun, copying, predicting, and Zabuza's confidence began to crack as his own techniques were thrown back at him. Then Zabuza caught Kakashi. A moment of overextension. Kakashi reached for the killing blow and Zabuza was faster, just barely, and the water prison technique closed around the Jounin like a fist. A sphere of water, dense and impenetrable, with Zabuza's hand pressed against its surface to maintain it. Kakashi. Sakura screamed. Inside the prison, Kakashi's face was visible, distorted through the water, his Sharingan still spinning, his expression shifting from surprise to frustration to something that looked impossibly like resignation. "Run," he said, muffled through the water. "Take Tezuna and run. He can't chase you while maintaining the prison." "Like hell," Naruto said. "That's an order, Naruto. You said those who abandon their friends are worse than trash. Your words, on the first day." Naruto formed the cross seal. "So shut up and let me work." Shadow clones, 50 of them. They poured into existence around him, filling the shoreline, and Zabuza laughed. "Clones against me? Kid, I'll cut through 100, Sasuke," Naruto said. "Giant Shuriken, now." Sasuke didn't hesitate. He pulled the Fuma Shuriken from his back, a weapon Mikoto had taught him to carry, 4-bladed, collapsible, and threw it in a flat arc that cut through the fog like a scythe. Not at Zabuza. At the arm maintaining the water prison, Zabuza caught the Shuriken. One-handed. He was that fast, that strong. He grinned behind his bandages. Then the Shuriken transformed, because it wasn't a Shuriken. It was Naruto, hinged, hidden inside the thrown weapon, and he burst out of the transformation at point-blank range and drove a kunai at Zabuza's face. Zabuza jerked back. The kunai missed by an inch, but his hand left the water prison's surface for a fraction of a second, and that was enough. The prison collapsed. Kakashi was free. What happened next was fast and brutal. Kakashi, released, furious, powered by adrenaline and the Sharingan, hit Zabuza with a water dragon technique so massive it reshaped the shoreline. Zabuza flew backward, hit a tree. Kakashi pinned him with kunai and leaned close and said something Naruto couldn't hear. Then the Senbon needles hit. 2 of them. In Zabuza's neck. The missing nin's eyes went wide and then empty, and he collapsed, and a figure appeared on a tree branch above, slim, masked, wearing the porcelain mask of a hunter nin from the hidden mist. "Thank you," the hunter nin said. The voice was young, too young. "I've been tracking Zabuza Mamachi for months. You've done the hidden mist a service." The figure dropped from the tree, collected Zabuza's body with surprising gentleness for a hunter collecting a target, and vanished. The clearing was quiet. The fog was thinning. Kakashi swayed on his feet. "Kakashi-sensei," Sakura said. "I'm fine," he said, and then his knees buckled and Naruto caught him before he hit the ground. The Sharingan had drained him. Chakra exhaustion, the cost of using a transplanted eye, of keeping it active through an entire A-rank battle. Naruto looked at Sasuke. Sasuke looked at Naruto. "Tezuna's house," Naruto said. "We carry him." They carried him. Tezuna's house was small, warm, and occupied by his daughter Tsunami and her young son Inari. Tsunami was practical and kind, and took one look at the unconscious Jounin being hauled through her door by 3 battered 12-year-olds, and immediately started boiling water and clearing a futon. Inari sat in the corner and stared at them with eyes that reminded Naruto so viscerally of his own childhood that he had to look away. Kakashi woke up the next morning. He was pale, weak, and furious with himself in the quiet way that competent people are furious when they've made mistakes. He lay on the futon and stared at the ceiling and said, "Zabuza's alive." Naruto wasn't surprised. Something about the hunter nin had been wrong, the young voice, the gentle way they'd handled the body, the senbon placement in the neck. He'd been turning it over since the fight. "The hunter was fake," Naruto said. Kakashi looked at him. "Explain?" "Hunter nin destroy the body on site. Protocol, they don't carry targets away, the risk of someone retrieving the body is too high. And senbon to the neck is a medical technique, acupuncture points. You can put someone in a death-like state by hitting the right ones." The room was quiet. Sakura and Sasuke stared at Naruto. Kakashi's expression cycled through surprise, assessment, and something that looked like grim pride. "Mikoto taught you hunter nin protocols," Kakashi said. "She taught me a lot of things." "She taught you well." Kakashi closed his eye. "You're right, Zabuza's alive. The hunter nin is his accomplice, which means they'll be back and Zabuza will be at full strength." "How long? A week. Maybe less. Senbon-induced death states require recovery time." He opened his eye. "We have a week to prepare." The week that followed was the hardest training period of Naruto's life, which was saying something given that his baseline training regimen would have hospitalized most adults. Kakashi, once he could stand, took them to the forest near Tazuna's house and started teaching. Not the academy curriculum. Not D-rank skills. Real combat technique, the kind of training that Jounin gave to Genin. They expected to survive actual battlefields. Tree climbing came first. Sakura mastered it in an hour. Her chakra control was pristine. Sasuke took most of the day, his Uchiha pride driving him up the trunk over and over, falling and rising and falling and rising until he stuck. Naruto pretended to struggle with it longer than he needed to, maintaining his cover for Sakura's benefit, before mastering it by evening. Water walking came next. Then tactical exercises, ambush drills, escape routes, formation adjustments for different threat scenarios. Kakashi worked them until they dropped and then worked them more, and underneath the lazy exterior, Naruto could see the man's urgency. He was scared, not for himself, for them. For the 3 children he'd been entrusted with, walking into a fight that was above their level, because they'd chosen to stay and he'd let them. On the 3rd night, Naruto couldn't sleep. He left the house and sat on the dock that jutted out over the water and listened to the ocean breathe. Someone was already there. Inari sat at the end of the dock, his knees pulled to his chest, staring at the water. He didn't look up when Naruto sat beside him. They sat in silence for a while. The moon was out. The waves were small. "You're going to die," Inari said. His voice was flat, not cruel. "Defeated. Gato kills everyone who stands up to him. He killed my father. He'll kill you too." "Your dad stood up to Gato. He was a hero. The whole village looked up to him, and Gato made an example of him in front of everyone." The boy's voice cracked. "Heroes die, that's what heroes do." Naruto looked at him. Small, hollow-eyed, wrapped in hopelessness like a blanket. A kid who'd watched his father die and decided that the lesson was to never stand up again. Naruto understood. He understood so deeply that it ached. "My mom died the night I was born," Naruto said. "My dad died the same night. I grew up alone, no family, no friends. People hated me and I didn't even know why." He looked at the water. "I know what it's like to think nothing's going to get better, to think the world's just pain and the people who try to fix it get punished for trying." Inari was looking at him now, tears on his cheeks, silver in the moonlight. "But somebody saved me," Naruto said. "One person. She didn't have to. She was hurting worse than I was. She'd just lost everything, but she looked at me and decided I was worth saving, and she changed my whole life." He turned to Inari. "Your dad was a hero, not because he won, because he stood up. The standing up is the point, Inari, even if it doesn't work, even if it hurts. The standing up is the whole point." Inari cried, not quietly, big, heaving sobs that shook his small body and echoed across the water. Naruto put an arm around him and held on and said nothing else, because there was nothing else to say. Some grief was too big for words. You just had to sit with it. When the crying stopped, Inari wiped his face and looked at Naruto with red-rimmed eyes. "Are you really going to fight Gato?" "Yeah." "Are you going to win?" "Yeah." "How do you know?" Naruto grinned. "Because I'm too stubborn to lose." Zabuza came back on the 7th day. They'd expected him at the bridge, and that's where he appeared, out of the morning fog, his massive sword resting on one shoulder, his bandaged face expressionless. Beside him, the fake hunter nin stood like a shadow, porcelain mask hiding a face that Naruto could feel was young. His age. Maybe younger. "Round 2, Zabuza said. "Stay with Tazuna," Kakashi told Team 7. "I'll handle Zabuza. The hunter nin is yours." It happened fast. Kakashi and Zabuza crashed together like storms colliding. The bridge shook. Water erupted. Killing intent rolled across the structure in waves, and the construction workers scattered, dropping tools, running for the mainland. The hunter nin moved toward Team 7 with fluid, almost gentle grace. "I don't wish to fight you," the soft voice said, "but I will if I must." "Then you must." Sasuke said, and engaged. Ice. That was the hunter nin's weapon, not a technique Naruto had ever seen before, not in any of Mikoto's scrolls or Kakashi's lessons. Ice that formed from nothing, crystallizing out of the fog itself, shaping into mirrors that surrounded Sasuke in a dome of reflective surfaces. Sasuke was inside the dome, alone. Naruto could hear the impacts, Senbin hitting flesh, Sasuke grunting, the sharp crack of ice reforming after every strike. The Hunter Nin moved between mirrors at impossible speed, appearing and vanishing, each reflection a possible threat. Sakura, stay with Tazuna. Naruto ran toward the dome. Sasuke, I'm coming in. Don't. He was inside before Sasuke could finish the sentence. The dome closed behind him, ice on every side. His own reflection stared back from dozens of surfaces, and in every mirror the Hunter Nin appeared, dozens of identical figures, masked, armed with senbin, moving between reflections like a ghost between worlds. Sasuke was bleeding. Dozens of small wounds, senbin strikes, precise, not lethal, carefully placed. The Hunter Nin wasn't trying to kill them. Naruto realized this with a jolt that reframed the entire fight. You're holding back, Naruto said. The Hunter Nin paused. A fraction of a second, barely perceptible, but Naruto caught it. I have no desire to kill you, the voice said. But Zabuza-sama needs me to win. Why? Why are you doing this for him? Because he gave me a reason to exist. The voice softened further. I was alone, abandoned. Hated for my bloodline. He found me. He gave me purpose. I am his tool, and a tool's only value is in its usefulness. Naruto felt something crack inside him, not his bones, something deeper, because he recognized those words. He recognized the shape of that loneliness, the architecture of that gratitude, the terrible math of someone saved me, so I owe them everything. That's not what it means, Naruto said. When someone saves you, it doesn't make you their tool, it makes you their family. The mirrors rippled. The Hunter Nin's hands trembled, senbin held between fingers that were suddenly uncertain. You don't understand, the voice said, and there was anguish in it now, real and raw. Without Zabuza-sama, I am nothing, I have no one. I understand better than you think, Naruto's voice was steady. I know what it's like to have nothing, to be nothing, and I know what it's like when one person changes that, but the person who saved me didn't make me a weapon. She made me a person. She made me stronger so I could choose my own path. That's what saving someone means. The Hunter Nin was still. The mirrors hummed. Sasuke, bleeding and breathing hard, watched Naruto with an expression that was half disbelief and half recognition. Then Zabuza screamed, not a battle cry, a sound of pain, real pain, the kind that cut through everything else. Naruto spun toward the sound, outside the dome, on the bridge, where Kakashi and Zabuza had been fighting. The mirrors shattered. The Hunter Nin was moving, not at Naruto, past him, through the collapsing dome, running toward the sound of Zabuza's scream with a speed that was pure desperation. Naruto and Sasuke followed. Kakashi had Zabuza pinned. Lightning Blade, Naruto had heard of the technique, Kakashi's original creation, a concentrated bolt of lightning chakra held in the palm. Kakashi's hand was embedded in the bridge surface where Zabuza had been a second before. The missing nin had dodged at the last instant, but his arm hung limp, severed tendons, his sword lying 5 feet away. The Hunter Nin arrived, stood between them. Mask removed, it was a boy. Young Naruto's age, maybe slightly older. Beautiful in a devastating, androgynous way, with long dark hair and eyes that were wet and desperate and absolutely willing to die. Haku, Zabuza said from the ground. Get out of the way. No, that's an order. I won't. Kakashi hesitated. His lightning blade crackled. The boy, Haku, stood in its path with his arms spread, shielding Zabuza with his body, and the tableau held for a frozen, terrible moment. Then the laughter came from the end of the bridge, from the fog. A short man in a suit, flanked by dozens of armed mercenaries, walking onto the bridge with the casual authority of someone who owned everything he could see. Well, Gato said, this saves me the trouble. Zabuza's head turned. Haku's eyes widened. Kakashi lowered his hand. You see. Gato continued, adjusting his glasses. I was never going to pay you, Zabuza. Hiring missing nin is expensive. Killing them after they've done the work is free. He gestured at the mercenaries. These gentlemen cost a fraction of your fee, and they're much more. Manageable. Zabuza stared at Gato. The betrayal on his face wasn't surprise, it was confirmation. The confirmation of something he'd suspected and ignored because the money was good, and the alternative was admitting that he'd sold his sword to a man who saw him as disposable. You, Zabuza started. Oh, and the bridge builder dies too, and the ninjas. Can't have loose ends. Gato smiled. It was a small, efficient smile, the smile of a man who'd built an empire on efficiency. Kill them all. The mercenaries advanced. 50 of them, armed with swords and clubs and the dull confidence of numbers. They weren't ninja. They were thugs. But 50 thugs with weapons on a bridge with limited escape routes was a genuine threat, especially to a team of exhausted genin and 2 wounded combatants. Naruto stepped forward. He didn't think about it, didn't calculate, didn't weigh risks or assess tactical options. He just stepped forward between the mercenaries and the people behind him and formed the cross seal. Sasuke, he said. Sakura, guard Tezuna. Naruto, you can't. Guard Tezuna. He pushed chakra into the seal. Not the careful, regulated flow Mikoto had taught him. The full reservoir, the ocean, shadow clones filled the bridge, not 50, not 100, not 200. Naruto lost count at 300, and they kept coming, pouring into existence, filling every inch of available space, standing on the bridge railings, clinging to the underside, hovering at the edges. An army of identical blonde shinobi, each one grinning, each one armed, each one carrying enough combat training to dismantle a room full of thugs. The mercenaries stopped advancing. Hi, said 300 Narutos. Gato's smile disappeared. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a rout. The clones swept through the mercenary force like water through sand. Non-lethal Naruto had made that choice instinctively, the choice Mikoto had spent years building into his character. Broken weapons, disarmed fighters. Men thrown off the bridge into the water below, sputtering and terrified and completely outmatched. Gato ran. He made it 6 steps before a clone appeared in front of him and another behind him, and a third picked him up by the back of his suit jacket and held him off the ground like a misbehaving cat. Put me down. Do you know who I am? I'll buy this whole village and burn it. You're done, Naruto said. The real Naruto, walking through the dispersing clones, his face hard and his voice flat. Your mercenaries are done. Your control over Wave is done. The bridge gets built. You're a child? Yeah, he looked Gato in the eyes, and you just lost to one. The villagers came. They'd been watching from the shore, Tezuna's neighbors, the fishermen, the shopkeepers, the families who'd lived under Gato's boot for years. They came with whatever they could carry, pitchforks, hammers, kitchen knives, one old woman with a frying pan. And they stood at the end of the bridge and looked at the army of blonde clones and the dangling shipping magnate, and something changed in their faces. Inari was at the front. He was holding a crossbow that was almost too big for him, his face red and tear-streaked and absolutely fierce. I'm standing up, he said. Naruto grinned at him, the real grin. The one that cracked the world open and let the light in. They stayed in Wave for 2 more weeks. The bridge needed to be finished, and Team 7 helped partly as continued mission fulfillment, partly because Naruto refused to leave until it was done. Zabuza survived. His injuries were severe, but Haku's medical knowledge and Sakura's surprisingly capable first aid training kept him alive through the critical period. He lay on a futon in Tezuna's house and stared at the ceiling and didn't talk for 3 days. On the 4th day, Naruto brought him soup. I don't need your pity, Zabuza said. Good, it's soup, not pity. Naruto set the bowl down. Eat it or don't. Why are you helping me? I tried to kill your teacher. Yeah, and Gato tried to kill you. And your whole life has been people trying to kill people, and it hasn't worked out great for anybody. Naruto sat down. Haku loves you, not as a tool, not as a master. He loves you the way family loves family, and you love him back or you wouldn't have screamed when Kakashi's attack almost hit him. Zabuza said nothing. His jaw tightened beneath the bandages. You've got a second chance, Naruto said. That's rare. Don't waste it being the same person who got you into this mess. He left. Zabuza ate the soup, the bridge was completed on a clear morning, the whole village turned out. Tezuna stood at the center of it with his hat in his hands and tears running down his weathered face, and the villagers cheered. And Inari sat on his father's memorial and watched the bridge that would save his country stretch across the water like a promise. "What are you going to name it?" Naruto asked. Tezuna looked at him. "The Great Naruto Bridge." Naruto blinked. You can't name a bridge after me." "I just did." Naruto stared at the old bridge builder. Then he laughed, bright and startled and genuine, and rubbed the back of his neck and looked at the bridge, and for just a moment saw something beyond the structure. A future. A world where things got built instead of destroyed, where people stood up instead of staying down. This is what a Hokage does, he thought, not the fighting. This, building things, connecting people, making it possible for a village to hope again. Team 7 left Wave Country that afternoon. They walked across the bridge. Their bridge, the one they'd bled for, and the villagers waved from behind them and Inari cried again, but this time it was different. This time the tears were warm. Kakashi walked at the front, limping slightly, his Sharingan hidden, his orange book conspicuously absent for once. Sasuke walked at the left flank, silent, processing, his dark eyes carrying new information about the world and his place in it. Sakura walked at the rear, taller somehow, straighter, her hands steady in a way they hadn't been before. And Naruto walked in the middle, with the sun on his face and the ocean at his back, and the sound of a village cheering his name fading into the distance behind him. He thought about Mikoto. About what she'd say when he told her about the mission. About the look on her face when he described the bridge, the fight, the moment when Inari stood up. He thought about what she'd given him. Not jutsu, not technique, not the mechanical components of a shinobi's toolkit. She'd given him the ability to walk into other people's pain and not look away. To see suffering and say, "This is not acceptable," and mean it with every fiber of his being. To understand that strength wasn't about how hard you could hit, it was about what you chose to protect. He was going home. Back to the apartment with the 2 bedrooms and the kitchen table with 3 chairs and the woman who waited by the gate every afternoon. Back to the small, ordinary, miraculous life that a dying woman and a desperate boy had built from nothing. The road stretched out ahead. The fog was gone. The sun was warm. He walked faster. They reached Konoha by evening. Mikoto was at the gate. Not the apartment, the village gate. She'd known when they'd arrive, because she'd been tracking their return through contacts Naruto didn't know about and channels Naruto didn't ask about. She stood in the fading light with her arms crossed, and her dark hair catching the breeze and her eyes doing the thing where they scanned for injuries before doing anything else. Naruto broke formation. He knew it was unprofessional. He didn't care. He crossed the remaining distance at a run and she caught him and held him, and he was 12 years old and a shinobi and a veteran of his first real battle, and he pressed his face into her shoulder and breathed. "I'm home," he said. "You're home," she said. Her hand was on the back of his head. Her other arm was reaching for Sasuke, who had stopped 3 feet away with his hands in his pockets and his jaw doing the complicated thing. "Get over here," she said. He got over there. Kakashi watched from a distance. The masked Jounin stood at the gate with his hands in his pockets, and his one visible eye curved in what might have been a smile. And he watched the woman hold the 2 boys, and he thought about Minato and Kushina, and the family they'd wanted for their son, and the family he'd gotten instead. "Sensei," he thought, "she's doing what I couldn't, what you asked me to. She's keeping him safe and making him strong and loving him the way you would have." He turned and walked toward the Hokage's office to file his mission report. The report would be interesting. A C rank that became an A rank. A bridge builder who lied. A missing nin and his apprentice. 3 genin who'd fought above their level and a boy who'd summoned an army on a bridge. The report would reach the Hokage. The Hokage would read it. And Danzo would read it too, through whatever channels he maintained, and the information would settle into the old war Hawk's calculations like a new variable in an equation he'd been solving for years. A Jinchuriki with training. With bonds. With a mother who'd taught him to be something more than a weapon, Danzo would not like that. Danzo would not like that at all. Kakashi walked faster. Chapter 5. The exams and the Serpent the Mission report landed on the Hokage's desk at 9 in the morning and on Danzo's by noon. Hiruzen Sarutobi read it twice, pipe unlit, his face settling into the heavy, complicated expression of a man watching dominoes fall in directions he hadn't anticipated. A C-rank mission that escalated to A-rank. 3 genin who'd held their ground against Zabuza Mamachi. And Naruto Uzumaki, the boy he'd failed, the boy Mikoto had rebuilt, deploying 300 shadow clones on a bridge in the land of waves like it was nothing. 300. The number sat in the report like a lit fuse. He set the report down and looked out the window at the village. The Hokage monument stared back at him. Minato's stone face, impassive, eternal, judging. "You'd be proud of him," Hiruzen murmured, "and furious with me." He reached for his pipe, lit it, drew the smoke in and let it settle in his lungs, and tried not to think about the copy of this report that was already being read in a windowless office beneath the village by a man with one eye and no mercy. 3 weeks after Wave, Kakashi submitted Team 7's nomination for the Chunin selection exams. He told them on the bridge, their usual meeting spot, the red-railed bridge over the canal where they gathered every morning and waited for him to show up 2 hours late. This morning, he was only 90 minutes late, which meant he considered the news important. "The Chunin exams," he said, holding up 3 application forms. "Held in Konoha this year. Foreign teams from Sand, Rain, Grass, Sound, and Waterfall will be participating. You have 1 week to decide." Sakura took her form carefully, studying it like a mission scroll. Sasuke took his without expression. Naruto took his and felt the paper's weight in his hands, heavier than it should have been, heavier than a single sheet had any right to be. "This is optional," Kakashi continued. "The exams are dangerous. People die. You've been genin for less than 4 months and most nominees have at least a year of active service. No one will think less of you if you wait." "I'm in," Naruto said. "I didn't finish. I'm in," Kakashi's eye crinkled. "At least pretend to think about it." "I've been thinking about it since Wave." Naruto folded the form and tucked it into his jacket. "The exams are a chance to test everything I've learned against the best genin from 5 nations. When would I get another opportunity like that? Next year, when you're more experienced, or this year? When the other teams aren't expecting us." Kakashi looked at him, then at Sasuke, who'd already pocketed his form with the silent finality of someone who'd made his decision before the question was asked. Then at Sakura, who was chewing her lip, her green eyes flickering between her teammates. "Sakura," Kakashi said, gentler, "this is your choice, not theirs." "I know." She looked at the form, at the boys, at the bridge railing where she'd spent months standing and waiting and growing into someone she barely recognized. "I'm scared. Good, scared people pay attention." "I'm in." She folded her form. Her hands were steady. "I'm in." Naruto told Mikoto that evening she was in the kitchen slicing vegetables with the precise, economical movements of a woman who did everything: cooking, combat, conversation with intention. The knife didn't pause when he told her. It kept moving, clean cuts, even spacing. "The Chunin exams," she said. "Yeah, in Konoha with foreign teams." "Yeah, including Sand." The knife stopped. She set it down and turned to face him, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. "Naruto, do you know what Sand's Jinchuriki is?" "They have a Jinchuriki. Gaara of the Sand. The one-tail, he's your age. He's been entered in the exams." She watched his face. "The intelligence I've gathered suggests he's unstable, dangerous. His seal is poorly constructed and the beast's influence is significant." "How do you know all this?" "I know because I've spent the last 5 years building an information network that would make Jiraiya jealous." The faintest ghost of a smile. Never underestimate a mother with free time and a grudge. Naruto processed this. A Jinchuriki, like him. But unstable, uncontrolled, without the careful seal work Minato had done, without the training Mikoto had provided. A version of what Naruto could have been if nobody had saved him. "There's more," Mikoto said, her arms tightened. "I've been hearing things." unusual troop movements near the border. Sound Village, a new hidden village, barely a year old, has entered multiple teams. That's abnormal for a village with no established military presence. You think something's wrong. I think the Chunin exams are a pressure point. Every major village sends its best genin and their jounin supervisors. Konoha's defensive perimeter thins. Foreign ninja flood the village under diplomatic immunity. She looked at him. If someone wanted to attack Konoha, this would be the time. Have you told the Hokage? I've told Kakashi. Kakashi told the Hokage. The Hokage is aware. She picked up the knife again, resumed cutting. But awareness and action are different things, and Hiruzen has a history of being aware of threats and failing to act on them. The bitterness in her voice was old and deep, and Naruto didn't touch it. I'm still entering, he said. I know. Are you going to try to stop me? No, I trained you for exactly this. She finished the vegetables and swept them into the pot. I'm going to tell you everything I know about every team in the exams, their abilities, their tendencies, their weaknesses. You're going to memorize it, and then you're going to walk into that exam hall and show them what 5 years of training can do. Naruto grinned. Yes, ma'am. And Naruto? She pointed the knife at him. If you encounter Gaara, do not engage alone. Do you understand me? He is not a normal opponent. His sand defense is near absolute, and his killing instinct is genuine. He will try to murder you, and he will feel nothing about it. You can handle most things. This is not most things. Promise me. He looked at her face, the set of her jaw, the intensity in her dark eyes, the scar beneath her clothes that she carried every day as a reminder of what happened when you underestimated a threat. He remembered the night she'd told him about the fox, the gentleness and the honesty, the way she'd held his hand and said, I will always tell you the truth. He owed her the same. I promise I'll be smart about it, he said. That's not what I asked. It's the best I can give you. I can't promise to run from a fight if someone's life is at stake. She stared at him. Then she sighed and turned back to the stove and said, very quietly, You are exactly like your mother. Is that good? It's terrifying. The night before the exams, Mikoto briefed all 3 members of Team 7. She'd invited Sakura and Sasuke to the apartment. Sasuke was already there, obviously, and Sakura arrived at 7 looking nervous and surprised to be included. The kitchen table was covered in files, notes, photographs, and hand-drawn diagrams that represented months of intelligence, gathering conducted through a network of contacts that Mikoto had cultivated quietly and relentlessly since the day she'd decided that the village's official information channels couldn't be trusted. Sit, Mikoto said. This will take a while. She walked them through every team she'd identified. Sand's team, Gaara, Kankuro, Temari. Gaara's abilities, his sand defense, his instability. The puppet user brother. The wind-style sister. Sound's teams, she had less on them, which itself was information. A new village with unknown techniques and no intelligence profile meant someone was deliberately keeping them dark. Konoha's other rookie teams. Team 8, Hinata, Kiba, Shino under Kurenai. Tracking specialists. Team 10, Shikamaru, Ino, Choji under Asuma. The new generation of the Ino Shikacho formation. Team Guy, Rock Lee, Neji Hyuga, Tenten, the most experienced Konoha team in the exams with a full year of active service. Neji Hyuga is the one to watch, Mikoto said. Byakugan user, gentle fist specialist, top of last year's graduating class. He's a prodigy in the truest sense. His skill level exceeds most Chunin already. I've seen him train, Sasuke said. He's good. He's exceptional and angry. The Hyuga clan's branch family system has left him with a considerable grudge. Angry prodigies are dangerous because they're skilled enough to act on their anger. You'd know,